And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Thursday, April 6th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Sorare. We have a 5-game slate that feels like a 10-game slate, but also feels like a 3-game slate at the same time, because some of these teams are just normal, and then some of them are fully broken, and it's even worse than it was this morning. So we're going to have a pretty good time breaking this bad boy down. Before we get started, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter. Adam, how you doing?
Doing pretty well. Should be a different show than this morning. Things have changed a little bit. I know at one point this morning I said something like, when I was talking about Cleveland, that there was a bunch of value elsewhere too. And Lofty was like, yeah, not really though, because prices have adjusted and now there's a lot of value elsewhere. So the slate kind of just opened up.
Yeah, there is. I know this is going to sound ridiculous, and we're going to work our way through it. And you and I were sort of talking about it in DMs this morning when you guys were breaking down the Cavs. There's honestly, at this point now, too much value. There's no way to actually utilize it any longer. It
actually, I think, makes the slate better just from a playability standpoint, because the problem when you have what we thought we had this morning, or at least, you know, what things look like this morning, where you have a bunch of healthy teams, the teams where you have guys rolled out, the prices have changed. And then you have one team like the Cavs that is just, you know, everybody's 3K.
Yeah.
That's where it becomes so difficult to differentiate, because you're going to that value and then you're getting the same pay up guys as everybody else. And the alternative is not playing, the 3K guys that are going to score 30 points. And that's not a great alternative. So it becomes really difficult. The slate's more playable now, though, because like you have, instead of just trying to say like, I'm going to pick some random Cleveland dude and hope that he has a big game off the bench, you just get Orlando guys and Cleveland guys and Denver guys. Like there's so many now that it's going to bring the actual ownership on those guys as a whole down.
It's going to be a really interesting discussion point on salary and how it should be utilized on a day like today in comparison, because Cleveland's free, the whole team up and down the line. They're all sub 4K. I assume most of Orlando is going to look the same. Like
they're a little more expensive.
Mo Wagner's a $3,100 power forward center. Good luck with that today. Cole Anthony is the only like real human on Orlando. I don't know what Denver's going to end up looking like. Feels like Phoenix is also going to punt this game at some point in time throughout today. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. It's not on paper yet, but if Denver's pushing it, like Phoenix has nothing else to play for. So
the only counter argument I'd make to that is that I don't know where Phoenix is at comfortability wise with just the way their offense is running,
which is worse for DFS, because I think the more likely scenario is that these guys play like 28 minutes. And at that point, it's like, oh,
I see what you're saying. Right. Yeah.
Like now they're a different puzzle.
Right. I see. Like, we still want them to play together, but we don't need them to play 38 minutes to figure this out. Yeah.
Right. Like Kevin Durant's not playing 36 minutes today, no matter how competitive this matchup is, because there's no incentive. I think they're going to be like kid gloves a little bit with some of these guys. So, we got to talk about all of this stuff right now.
There are 1.5 teams on this slate that the game matters for.
Yep. Yeah.
The game absolutely matters a massive amount for Oklahoma City, and the game sort of matters for Miami because they have a 13% chance, give or take, of getting out of the play-in game.
Yep. Yeah. And then that's about it. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. The Cleveland Cavaliers are up in the air for what the line of this game is. I got it at 5.5-point dogs in Orlando, 214 total. I think this one's live to still move around a little bit, but let's break it on down. Here is the Cleveland depth chart for today. No Darius Garland, no Donovan Mitchell, no Evan Mobley, no Jared Allen, no Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, or Dylan Windler. So we'll start here. What is your expectation for the starting lineup for the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Not with much confidence, but my educated guess, or not even very educated guess, would be Rubio, Chetty, Stevens, Wade, either Lopez or Diakite.
Yeah, this is a real treat. The most expensive guy of anybody we're going to talk about for Cleveland is $3,800 power forward center Dean Wade. Assuming your starting lineup is correct, who is the best play for the Cleveland Cavaliers today?
Either Rubio or Chetty.
Okay, I agree. I think Chetty, to me, is the easiest play to get to on today's slate. You get the small forward, power forward, and I think he's the most likely guy to like play the most minutes.
I was going to say, I agree with you for the two reasons you said. One, he's small forward, power forward, which we know is just always a weaker position than point guard. But Ricky Rubio, like even if he starts, if Rubio comes off the bench, the ownership will come down, but he's also risky because they have no incentive to play Ricky Rubio's old ass a bunch of minutes. But if he starts, you can at least, he's on the floor and you can assume he's playing, at least like mid-20s, if not more. But with Chetty, I just feel more comfortable that he's playing minutes. There's no reason that they care if Chetty rolls his ankle in this game and misses the next 3 weeks. They do maybe care a little bit about Ricky Rubio. So yeah, I think I would say Chetty's the top guy. Rubio, assuming he starts, would be the second.
Okay. We're on the same page, assuming those things. Now, from a minutes perspective, I tried to be about as pessimistic as I could be for Cleveland. And that was part of the reason that I was only getting to 2 Cleveland guys in that optimal earlier today. I didn't go higher than 30 on anybody. I locked both those point guards in at 24. Like I didn't want to overly extend any one of these individual guys when it was just like, who the hell knows right now? Now I'm just making this shit up at 6:30 in the morning. I think both point guards
making it up at 5:00 at night, kind of.
Also true. We will have this information at least for Cleveland.
Right.
I'm assuming Neto and Rubio split 48 minutes. Do you think they're going to play alongside each other at all?
I'm not very, I would say no, but I'm not overly confident in that either. The reason I lean toward no is that they do have plenty of wings still. They're shorter at like center.
Agreed. And then as I look at this team, because of prices, there's not a single rule that I would set here.
Agreed. Even like Neto and Rubio can still very easily both get there here.
Yeah. And it's a 5-game slate. Like is it my goal to get those two together? No.
Right.
And I don't think it's going to happen all that frequently just because of how much value we already have, but I'm not limiting any combination here because all bets are off.
By the way, I do now have 2 Cleveland guys in my optimal lineup.
That makes sense. We opened up a little bit more value in other spots. How do you want to handle this though? Like, is there anything specific that we should be talking about? Or is it just like when you see the starting lineup, you kind of bump these guys a bit?
Yeah, I think that's sort of how you need to approach it. Like anybody starting, you're just going to feel a little bit better about their minutes. Their ownership is also going to be higher. The other thing I guess to keep in mind that is just useful in general is knowing who the decent point per minute guys are. And it's kind of difficult to say with a lot of confidence because we just don't have any sort of sample where not only are Garland and Mitchell off the floor, but Mobley's off the floor, LeVert's off the floor. Like you have to keep in mind that in the minutes this year where Garland and Mitchell have not been on the floor, Karis LeVert's played the most minutes. He has a 23.5% usage rate, 27.5% assist percentage. So you're still talking about these other guys playing basically those minutes with LeVert, who now is gone. Evan Mobley is gone. He has a 23% usage rate without either of them on the floor as well. But in general, Chetty's a solid point per minute guy. He can do a bit in terms of playmaking. He can score if he has to. We know Rubio is a good point per minute guy. Neto is typically around a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy. Lamar Stevens pretty much across the board sucks at scoring fantasy points. Dean Wade, same boat. That's not to say neither of them can have good games, but they're just not. They're guys that you're more likely to actually need those minutes. Whereas Chetty, Rubio, to a lesser extent, Neto, Lopez, those guys can play 24 minutes and still just end up being good plays.
Who's not a play for you today for Cleveland? Like,
Danny Green.
Okay, I was going to say,
Unless
do you get
starts.
to Danny Green, Isaiah Mobley, Sam Merrill?
I did not know Sam Merrill was on the team.
He is on the team.
Okay, we don't have him projected to play, so
probably should.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, like, if Danny Green's not starting, he'd be at like the bottom of the list for me because like why? Like if they randomly want to get Danny Green minutes, like they would just start him, you would think. So he would be like the bottom of the list. Even somebody like Isaiah Mobley, you can just make the case where it's just like, yeah, maybe they'll just give him a bunch of random minutes and he's probably a decent point per minute guy. So like I wouldn't have any confidence in Mobley, but I can at least like explain a path where he ends up being useful. Whereas assuming Danny Green doesn't start, it's really tough to imagine the game where like Danny Green plays 26 minutes off the bench.
And Danukes.
Right. Yeah. And plays well.
Let's just, for sake of argument, let's just say that like 3,500 is the standard salary for all of these guys, but it doesn't really matter which one I'm picking here. What do you need today? Because we're giving no limit to the amount of guys that you could roster at 3K to 3,500, whatever. What's the real score that matters?
You mean like, wait, what's your question?
Well, like, if this was just Cleveland today, then like, 25 out of Rubio might be totally fine to get you to a real lineup by the end of the day. That's not the case today. There's too many different 3K guys. Is that 35 today that you're looking for baseline out of all of this garbage at the bottom? Because it's just going to happen?
Yeah, probably 30, 35. I think I would use like, in my version of boom percentage, I think I would set it to needing like 360 total points.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense.
Which would be like 29 DraftKings points at 3K.
Yeah, like I was going to say, like 10x seems to be like the floor in my mind. And it doesn't necessarily like normally if there's just 3K guys, you can get away with it a little bit more. That's not going to be the case for today.
Right. Yeah, like I think I would set it to just, like I said, like 5x plus 14, basically.
Yeah. What's the most amount of Cleveland guys you're willing to have in a lineup? Or is there no limit to you on a day like that? Because of their pricing, it's just all bets are off.
I think you could make a case for it to be all bets are off. If you wanted to cap it at like 4, I think that's reasonable as well, since you do have Orlando and Denver too. But it's just in thinking it through, like, let's say you have Rubio, Chetty, Lamar Stevens. I guess most of the time you're going to want like your next piece to be a Denver guy or an Orlando guy, but you could certainly see it where like Neto still ends up beating out guys from Orlando or Denver, or Isaiah Mobley gets minutes, or Robin Lopez or whatever. So, I mean, I don't think I would want to hard cap it at 3, especially if I'm playing 150 lineups. I think you could make a case for 4. I also think that like if you just don't cap it at all, you're probably not getting that many lineups above 4 anyway.
Agreed. Is there anything else we should touch on here from Cleveland? I mean, this is one of the more unique situations that I can remember. I can't picture teams being like wholesale free. I always feel like somebody is 5,500 already, and like that's just not the case.
The only saving grace here is that they do have 10 guys. It's not quite the Memphis team from, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago now, where they had 6 3K guys.
Yeah. This is fascinating. All right, I got nothing else for Cleveland. Let's just sum it up finally. 2 best options are, assuming he starts, Rubio and Chetty.
Yeah, and then to me, everything else drops off. Lamar Stevens, Neto, Lopez, Diakite, Wade start kind of showing up pretty far below those guys. In Lord's Field tournaments, if you want to throw darts at Isaiah Mobley, feel free. He at least probably will do well if he gets the minutes.
All right. Now we go over to the Orlando side, where we have basically the exact same conversation. Their entire starting 5 is out for today. No Fultz, no Harris, no Franz Wagner, no Paolo Banchero, no Wendell Carter Jr. I see one guy here that is a better play than anything we even saw on Cleveland, but we'll get to that in a second. When you look at Orlando, where's the first place you want to be?
Wagner, I guess, is first.
Yeah. To me, he's better than anything on Cleveland, assuming he's starting.
Yeah, he's showing up about the same for me as Chetty.
Okay.
A little bit ahead of Rubio. After him, I think it's the backcourt. You have Cole Anthony at 5,700. You have Jalen Suggs at 4K. These are guys that you know can actually score the ball and are going to be more than willing to take shots.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's crazy to me that Cole Anthony is 5,700 and still looks exceptional today.
Yeah, but I mean, there's just nobody else to play offense.
Right. Same for like 4K Suggs, looks awesome. I think three like Okiki looks like Chetty to me. I mean, what do we do with like a Bull? What do we do with Goga? Like, are you willing to play Mo Wagner and Goga together?
I think you can, just because of how cheap they are.
I know. This is just insanity.
Yeah,
Does Orlando look better to you than Cleveland?
Kind of. Actually, yes, because, and this goes back to something we've kind of joked about all season long, Orlando has such a deep team of like solid enough fantasy players that instead of getting down to like Dean Wade, Lamar Stevens, Howell Neto, guys like that, you're getting down to Mo Wagner, Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony. We know Bull's a good point per minute guy at 3K. Okiki at 3K is not a bad point per minute guy. He's on par with, like Howell Neto. He's better than Lamar Stevens and Dean Wade. So you just have better fantasy producers here, and they're also really cheap. And then the guys, Suggs and Anthony that aren't literally 3K, it still doesn't matter because you have so many 3K guys. They may as well be 3K. It's not changing anything in your roster construction.
Cole Anthony's price is meaningless to today's slate because of the rest of Cleveland and the rest of Orlando.
Right. Yeah, which
it plays no role.
It's kind of funny.
He could be 7,700. I'd still love him.
Right. Like looking at who's just showing up in Fantasy Cruncher with just like the dummy crunch I ran. And this wouldn't, not saying in terms of like, if the slate started right now, I'd have this much of them, but just showing up in the lineups that are getting built. You have Chetty, Mo Wagner, Ricky Rubio as the top 3, which, you would expect. But then it's like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Cole Anthony, Joel Embiid. And so my first thought was just like, wow, that's weird. There's so much value on this slate, like to see guys that are at real price points, but it's just like, it doesn't matter because there's so many cheap guys.
Yeah, once you pick 3 cheap guys from just Cleveland and Orlando, if you want, you've already given yourself the ability to basically fill in the rest of your lineup with whatever you choose.
Oh, we just got an Orlando starting lineup.
This should be good. The
Suggs.
Magic will start. Suggs, Caleb Houston, Bol, Chuma Okeke, and Mo Wagner. Okay, so at least that gives us a talking point for right now. Suggs at 4K is as close to a lock button as you're going to get normally. Looks exceptional. Caleb Houston, probably still not interesting.
He's the only starter that, and I'm not even going to say I don't
stinks.
like. He's the only starter that I don't like actively want to just be jamming into as many lineups as I can.
He's going to be a $3,100 small forward on a 5-game slate that still gets 5% ownership. That's staggering.
So he's played the most minutes this year without Paolo Banchero or Franz Wagner on the floor. He's played 196 minutes. He's averaged 2/3 of a fantasy point per minute with a 12.5% usage rate.
I think Chuma for flat min, small forward, power forward looks at least as good as Chetty. And basically, to me, the same guy.
To go back to your other question, now that we have the starting lineup, I absolutely like Orlando more than I like Cleveland.
Yeah. Bol, flat 3K, power forward center. Hard to not say that he looks amazing.
Yeah, he's played 141 minutes without any of Banchero, Wagner, Carter, Fultz. He's at a fantasy point per minute. I don't expect that to change. Caleb Houston gets all the way up to 0.69 DraftKings points per minute.
And then I think Mo Wagner is the best play on the slate.
Yep, 1.36 DraftKings point per minute. Only 102 minutes, but not surprising there. Like he just does. He's one of those guys, and this is why I like Orlando so much. Like it's so much easier to get to them than Cleveland is. Assuming that you don't get massive gaps in ownership, but they have guys that like can actually step up and do like everything. Mo Wagner is a very good fantasy player. He's not a great basketball player, like an NBA player, but very good fantasy player. And same can go for Bol and Suggs and Anthony. Suggs and Anthony both between 1.1 and 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. Okeke at 0.72. Kind of like I said before, that's one of the weaker point per minute guys that's playing for Orlando today, but it's one of the better, or at least in the same ballpark as everybody on the Cavs except for Rubio and Chetty.
How do you want to handle Cole Anthony?
Play a lot of him.
Yeah. Like to me, him coming off the bench is not all that crazy. Does it stop me from getting to 36 minutes? Yeah, probably. Am I still projecting him for 30 today? Yeah.
Right. Like in that, in Fantasy Cruncher, like I'd said, Anthony. So Anthony was showing up 5th for me. It was Chetty, Wagner, Rubio, SGA, Anthony. Now Anthony probably comes down and Suggs comes up. But like still expect to get to a lot of Cole Anthony.
How do you want to handle, now that we know it, how do you want to handle someone like Goga? Where does he rank for you for today? Where does he rank for you in terms of whatever's available for Cleveland? I think he's Goga probably ahead of the 2 Cleveland guys.
I think so too. He's a much better point per minute guy than either of Lopez or was it Diakite on Cleveland?
Yeah, I
always get him and Diabate mixed up, but yeah, I can't imagine why. But yeah, like he's another one. He's a fantasy point per minute guy that just needs the minutes. He's showing up more for me, much more for me than either of those guys. Wagner was showing up 65%. Goga was showing up around 19. Lopez was showing up 8. Diakite was showing up 5. I like Goga quite a bit. I did see somebody else in chat, like somebody asked about leaving, over $1,000 on the table. You could, like, I'm sure there's a situation where you build a lineup and it ends up being like, do I really care if I have Jimmy Butler or Tyler Hero or, Jimmy Butler or Bam Adebayo in my utility spot? Yeah. No, I don't. But I will say that even using, like a lot of randomness to kind of just run these lineups and see what's showing up, the vast majority of these are still between 49K and 50K. Yeah.
You shouldn't be going out of your way to just get to these guys because they're good plays. You're leaving points on the table at that point.
Right. Like there's
when you're leaving that much there, you can go from, this extra 3K guy to someone in the 4,500 range and stop doing what you were doing.
Right. Like if you like, I think if you're going to leave money, it's what I was saying. It's just this lineup has Bam Adebayo instead of Jimmy Butler, or this lineup has Tyler Hero instead of one of them. Fine. Yeah. Like he can at least win that, that group. But like looking at just a random lineup I have in front of me that is $49,800. There's no, so like it has Kevin Durant in it, right? If you want to turn Kevin Durant into Talen Horton-Tucker, and play a lineup at 48-6, you could make a case for that because maybe Durant plays 24 minutes and loses out to Horton Tucker. That's fine. But it's not like something I would love to do. I wouldn't want to just randomly turn James Harden into like Tyler Hero. But, again, like it's possible Hero wins if Harden plays 20 minutes. But typically you're still going to prefer just getting to those payoff guys.
Agreed. This is a hell of a 7:00 game stack.
Yeah.
I mean, from a late swap perspective too, like you're going to be locking in a lot of spots right out of the gate. The amount of combined ownership in most lineups with Cleveland Orlando is going to be just absolutely staggering. And there's basically no way for things to fail in this game. These guys are all too cheap. Like someone's breaking free. They'd have to cancel the game midway through.
Right.
Fascinating scenario. Is there anything else you think we should be touching on here for Orlando? I think we've hit on them pretty well, given we got their lineup.
To answer because somebody else asked about the Mo Wagner Goga question, I'm fine playing. They're both such good point per minute guys. I don't mind playing them together. They're both free. You can play Wagner at power forward. They've also shared the floor for 53 minutes, 104 possessions this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't have much of an issue having them together.
I kind of want to actually play now. This slate seems fun.
If the games weren't 5 spread out, 7, 7, 30, 8, 9, 10, I actually might.
Yeah, but all of your roster spots are going to be locked at 7 anyway.
That's fair. I'm looking at it. There's 1,000 spots left in the shoot around right now. I don't want to.
I'm not going to max it. I think I'm just going to throw in a few just for fun.
I want to bad, but like I also don't want to run my lineups and then look at it and just be like, oh god, this is gross. I got nothing else here. We got to make some time up. But that was going to be the game that we needed to look at the most. So, we did what we needed to do. Let me hit the super chat that we got. We got it before the Orlando question. So from Emery, Goga, Bol, or Mo Wagner, who gets more minutes? Mo Wagner.
Goga, Bol.
Could be Bol.
Yeah, probably Wagner. It could be Bol.
Not Goga.
I mean, like it could be Goga. It's probably not Goga.
I would be shocked if it were Goga, just because I don't think that he's got like that many minutes in him just in general. Like fair. He rarely got extended even in Indiana.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think it's between Wagner and Bol.
Yeah. I would lean Wagner. If you want it to be Bol, go for it. Those two are like 2 of the 3 best plays on the slate. So don't feel bad about grabbing either one of them. All right. Hit that like button if you haven't done it already. That for sure would help us out a ton. And then be ready for Live Before Lock coming up after this from 6 until 7:30. Always going big for Live Before Lock. And if you want to sign up for baseball, I got to give you guys the promo code. That is play ball. One big word. 9 days for $9. We are extending that deal through April 10th, so don't miss it. That gives you access to everything we have for MLB. Projections, ownership, top stacks, top pitchers, everything that you could want. Discord, all of it. $9 for 9 days. Doesn't include Fantasy Cruncher, but you could add that on if you want to. All righty. Miami Heat, 2.5-point dogs in Philly, 219 total. This one has a very different mechanism than the previous game in that these are real NBA players, or at least as of right now, they're real NBA players. Bam is now probable. Kyle Lowry is questionable. Nikola Jovic is out. The salaries for these gentlemen are meaningless at this point. So how do you feel about Miami?
The main 3 guys look fine. This team looks the same way it did this morning. Hero, Butler, Bam, they're all just useful pieces because, like you said, the salaries don't matter. Bam could be 7,600, he could be 6,600, he could be 9K, and he's going to be the same play on this slate. They all just are useful in that they have the ability to go score 50 plus fantasy points. Any one of them can do it. Everything else looks actively terrible because, like, you're just not in remotely the same situation. Like, can Kyle Lowry beat Ricky Rubio individually? Sure. Is Kyle Lowry going to beat every player on the Cavs and the Magic? Probably not. And that's sort of the problem that you're going to run into with everybody that is not named Hero, Butler, or Adebayo on this team.
This makes for a really tough day for Bam being center only. Like,
yeah, agreed.
He needs a big time score because there are going to be a couple centers out there with no price tags that are just like one of these idiots is going to fall into 40. And like, that really makes it a little bit harder for Bam to make that up.
Right.
So yeah, like I would prefer getting to Butler and Hero before Bam today, just because of the overwhelming amount of center value we're going to have. Would you anticipate getting to anything other than those three guys for Miami?
No, like I don't even, outside of saying these are NBA players that are going to play some minutes at 1% owned on a slate that, that is, in a top heavy tournament, outside of like, just an argument like that can apply to every player. No, because like I was saying, it's not about Kyle Lowry or Kevin Love needing to beat one or two of these cheap guys. They need to beat pretty much all of them. And that just becomes extremely unlikely.
On the Philly side, this one's just weird to me. Q tag on Maxey, Q tag on Tucker, Q tag on Melton. How
is this the first game in months that Embiid is not questionable?
I have no idea. That's sort of where I was going with this, because if you would just look at this slate and look at the NBA's playoff picture, you would think to yourself, well, Joel Embiid's not playing this one. By all accounts, he is. And as of right now, other than the fact that he's center only, I mean, his raw point ceiling is staggering for today.
Yeah. Do you think he's playing full minutes?
There's no way that he's not. He is not the guy that they warm up to play 20 minutes.
I don't mean 20, but like the other day with Jokic, they were going to play him. It ended up being a blowout, but they were going to play him like 29, 30 instead of, 35. I think they could do something like that. I don't know how much it matters, though.
Yeah.
Like 30 minutes of Embiid on this slate is still good.
I could never project him for less than 30.
Right, I agree. It's more so, are we ever seeing the 38, 39-minute Harden or Embiid game here?
I would be surprised. It could be Embiid because he's just like really trying to...
He's already got it, though.
Right, but like, it's Butler on the opposite side. I could see it. I can see the path for him still playing like 36 minutes today. Similar story for Harden. How much does it matter to you?
Well, that's the thing. It kind of doesn't. As long as you're not expecting it to be, 20, they play the first half and then don't play the second half. Like, as long as you're not expecting something like that, it doesn't matter too much. If they're shaving 5-6 minutes off of these guys, they still are going to be some of the highest projected players on the slate.
So who are you
This conversation is the reason that I think SGA is the best pay up option. But
agreed.
Yeah, it's just on this slate, even if you get 30 minutes from Embiid, because again, the salary just doesn't matter enough. On most slates, it would be, and you also don't have anybody at the top other than SGA that is playing huge minutes. You don't have Luka. Giannis, isn't on the slate. Jokic is out. So it's not a situation.
Like if he goes for 55, you need it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, pretty much. Like it's not a super deep mid-range because it's only a 5-game slate. You don't have those other guys at the top. If you projected Embiid for 30 minutes here and, his projection comes down to, so like right now we have him at 34 minutes, 53.5 points. So whatever, call it like 48 points as his projection. He's still showing up a ton.
Yeah. Who are you willing to roster from Philly, assuming everybody's in?
Embiid and Harden.
Not Maxey?
You could. I mean, you could make the case that he's a solid contrarian play at 2% owned. Because again, that $7,700 price tag doesn't matter a ton. You basically would need him to like beat out Hero, Bam, Butler, which he can. That's reasonable. I still don't think I would get to a lot.
Yes, agreed. I just like basically anybody that's going to be projected for 30 fantasy points probably needs at least a conversation point. Right. And I do have him over that mark for right now. But yeah, Harden and Embiid, get to whatever you can as far as I'm concerned, unless we hear something different. Maxey, I think, is on like the short list of guys that you can play, but certainly not going to be getting any value or any volume. Like, would you rather play Maxey or Tyler Hero?
Hero showing up a lot more for me.
Okay. Fair. Do the injury or the Q tags matter? Like, let's say Maxey, Tucker, and Melton all sit. Is that opening anything up for you for Philly? I assume the answer is no.
Not really. Like it's opening up a Jalen McDaniels or George Niang pivot away from what everybody else is playing. But that's more of like in this lineup, I'm going to play Jalen McDaniels instead of Bol Bol or instead of Chuma Okeke. It's not saying like I'm just going to start jamming in Jalen McDaniels instead of Chuma Okeke.
All right. We're on the same page there. Anything else for this game? This one's probably the easiest one to talk about, at least as of right now.
To answer David Trump said he can only have 3: Harden, Embiid, SGA, or Butler. If I can just have 3, it's Harden, Embiid, and SGA.
Yeah, it's not close.
I mean, salary at that point might start to matter, but
yeah, not by. I mean, I assume if you lock those 3 guys in Fantasy Cruncher right now, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Josh Gillum said if Maxey and Milton sit, can we play Harden? You can play Harden regardless.
Yeah, you should be playing Harden regardless. Yeah. He's like 35% owned. There's only so many places you can go at the top. Otherwise, you're putting together a lineup that's got $42,000 in it.
Yeah. Paris becomes mildly interesting, I guess, if like those 3 guys sit.
It unlocks him to be rostered.
Right.
Yeah.
Like right now, he's kind of in that Maxey ballpark, but Maxey still looks. I think Maxey looks better. I think Harris is a little bit easier to get to because of the positions and the fact he is 2,200 less. But they're both very similar in that they're just low probability plays that you're just hoping they run into like a really good shooting game or whatever. But if like you take Maxey out, that does open up some more usage for Harris. If you take all those guys out, it does make him look a little bit better.
The sponsor of this show would like you guys to hit the like button because the more likes that we get, the better it looks for them. Shout out to Sorare for being the sponsor here. If you are interested in signing up at Sorare, this is going to be a very different experience for fantasy contests because you're able to purchase cards and you own them at that point in time. So I don't even know if we're supposed to use that sort of terminology. It's probably frowned upon now, but whatever. You own the card. You know what I mean. You can get a Joel Embiid card, and you don't just have it for the day and then it goes away. You own it forever unless you want to sell it. You'll gain additional XP on that card by playing it in contest. We've got a little bit of a deal for you. So there's a link in the description or in chat for right now. You can get 1 free limited card after you complete your first 5-card purchase on the primary market for Sorare. This is a game that's been around for a couple years now. It's been very prevalent on the soccer side. They eventually opened up baseball, and now we've got the NBA end of it all. There are cards. Everything is tracked on the Ethereum blockchain. Don't stress over that. This is an established company, guys. Don't just think this is some sort of NFT fad. You're going to have to get used to playing things like this. This is more the future than anything that you're going to see. You can buy different cards, sell different cards, make trades with other people if you want. It's a fantastic ecosystem. We're constantly running Sorare content on our YouTube channels as well, so don't miss that. Go check them out, everybody. All righty. When I got to Portland, San Antonio this morning, because when I did my show, Orlando was still a normal team. Cleveland was weird, and that was like the only weird thing. Miami and Philly, I didn't have much to talk about, and I was like, oh my God, this Portland San Antonio game is like the most dog shit of all dog shit basketball games. I don't even know how to talk about it. Luckily for us, Portland's been shit for 2 to 3 weeks, so they're not as appealing as they normally would have been. Q-tag on Shaden Sharp, Q-tag on Trendon Watford. We are going to have Drew Eubanks and Kevin Knox. We do not have Nas Little, and it appears we're not going to have Matisse Thybulle. I'm just going to open it up to Portland. Talking about individual guys here is not all that important. Are there any guys on the Blazers that you think are good plus plays?
No, I think that there's decent plays. If you get everybody ruled out, that's questionable, then they start to look better because this situation is a little bit different than the other day. The other day, it was purely a minutes thing where if all the questionable guys get ruled out, then you're getting more playing time for other players, and that made them look better. But here you also have Sharp being questionable, and he is pretty much the offense at this point. So if he ends up getting ruled out, not only are you opening up more minutes, most likely for Shaq Harrison, you're also opening up more production, probably for Skylar Mays, maybe a little bit for Kevin Knox in terms of usage as well. So you kind of get a twofold bump if he is out. If he's in, I think Sharp is the best play from Portland. I think that, so he was 23% owned in the ownership run prior to the Orlando news. Last I saw, we haven't gotten new ownership, but I assume that will come down. He was showing up around I think he should be around 12, 13% owned the way things look right now.
Okay. Cavs
we did
lineup
also
is
get the good
Cavs lineup.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rubio, Chetty, Stevens, Wade, Lopez, which is what we were expecting. And then just to touch on this Sixers thing, look, the Nets are 99% to be the 6th seed. The Heat are 97% to be the 7th seed. Nobody's jockeying based on 1% and 2% odds in either direction. So I don't think that that's a viable thought process for
Wait, you said
the Sixers.
What?
The Heat are 97% to be the 7th seed. The Sixers aren't jockeying for anything.
Basketball Reference has it at 85.
They don't handle tiebreakers correctly.
Okay.
They don't have the mechanism to handle tiebreakers. So the Heat right now have already lost like any relevant tiebreaker that exists. So they are, per playoff status, they are set in the 7, essentially. They have a 3% chance to not be the 7 seed. And the Sixers are already set in stone 100% at the 3. But yeah, the Nets, what would it take for the Nets to drop? So the Nets own the tiebreaker against the Heat. So it would take a full-on Nets lose everything, Heat win out scenario. And, the odds of something like that happening are not high.
Is OKC actually a coin flip?
I believe it was like 55-45 when I looked at it this morning. It is what I have in my mind. They are 47% for the 10, 53. Now, like, you could quibble on like the actual odds of anybody of like the individual games,
right?
But they are tied with the Mavs at 38 and 42, but they own the tiebreaker against the Mavs. And then they also own the tiebreaker against the Jazz. Jazz don't have much of a chance, but they don't have the tiebreaker against the Timberwolves, who are 2 games ahead of them. But the one that matters most is the fact the Thunder own the tiebreaker on the Mavs.
Okay. How much would lay are we on that somebody just posted? The Sixers don't want the Heat in the first round. They should want to win tonight.
I don't know. I just got done talking about how that doesn't matter at all, but I don't know. It must be a gigantic delay. Don't be afraid to click that live button. Jump to the front of the line here. Is there anything else that we should really be talking about here for Portland? Like, obviously, the Q tags are incredibly important right now.
Yeah, they really are. Not that it would necessarily make anybody like the best play, because it wouldn't. You still have Orlando and Cleveland, but if Sharp is out, you do get another good value in Shaq Harrison, probably playing more minutes. It does make a $6,400 Skylar Mays look better, just because he's going to need to do more offensively if Sharp is out. If Watford is out, you're opening up more minutes for Kevin Knox. I don't know how much that matters, but these Q tags do matter in terms of like secondary plays, basically.
Yeah, like Kevin Knox is 5,200, and it's just like, how the hell do I do that when you have Cleveland and Orlando around here? But then all of a sudden you find out you got 8 guys for Portland. It's like, okay, well, I guess that's how. I don't have anything else to talk about here for Portland. I do, however, think San Antonio matters, and I think they matter a lot. Now, I loved Keldon Johnson earlier today. He's not really pulling that much ownership, and he's not as interesting now that he's kind of like floating in the mid-range. Devin Vassell is out. Devontae Graham is out. McDermott's out. Q tag on Keldon Johnson, which leads me to believe that like he might play. There's no reason for them to just like hang Q tags out in the breeze. Now, do I think he's playing? No, I actually do think he's going to sit. But $6,500 Keldon Johnson with those guys out playing against a fake team in Portland, I think he looks exceptional.
I think he looks good too. He showed up like 20% in that crunch I ran at the beginning of the show. That will come down just because I didn't have enough minutes going to Bol or Chuma Okeke. So they're going to start taking up some forward spots. But the ceiling for Keldon Johnson here is very, very high. The guy can rack up fantasy points even in actual NBA games. And he is probably the best player on the floor if he plays in the entire game. Like,
I'm cool with that. If you want to tell me that it's Zach Collins and not Keldon Johnson,
right,
I can get behind that, but it's not someone from Portland.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he looks really good if he's in. Similarly, Zach Collins looks very good, and Trey Jones looks very good. You have more favorable position eligibility on Keldon Johnson. But yeah, if he's in, I really like him. I also like Collins. I like Jones. Somebody mentioned Malachi Branham. He'd be my 4th guy here, with or without Jones. Well, without Jones, he becomes my 3rd guy, probably.
Yeah.
But even or Johnson rather, if Johnson is out, I like Branham a little bit. I like him a little bit if Johnson's in. He's just he's a decent differentiation play, but I certainly would have him behind those other 3 guys.
Yeah, like I would be more than happy to get to to Zach Collins if I could, but center's starting to become a little complicated. But Keldon Johnson at a small forward spot too. Like he has a legitimate 40 plus fantasy point ceiling today.
Yeah. I mean, its ceiling is higher than 40.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, if he gets north of 40, it's like you needed him for today.
Possibly, yeah.
If he's 15% owned at this point, like, I mean, I think that should be a slightly higher number. That's neither here nor there. He's going to get ruled out anyway, so none of it's going to matter.
Yeah.
I loved him this morning when it was just like Cavs value. I was like, this dude in the mid tier against a fake Portland team, like if he's in, this is a real play.
Yeah. My only like minor disagreement there was I think you need like 45 plus, not 40 plus.
That's fair. I think he's just a little underpriced there at 6,500, but that's neither here nor there.
It just doesn't matter because like you still need him to beat not only like these value pieces, but like you need him to beat Giddey and Horton Tucker and Hero and Butler and all of these guys realistically to be like a must play or at least be in their ballpark.
Race fan, is Diakite still a good play not starting? Yeah. I mean, like good is relative, but he is very, very rosterable.
He is playable. Yeah. It's somebody had asked about Mobley not starting too. It's the same thing as when we had talked about it. Diakite is just going to get backup center minutes. Could he get there? Sure. I'd rather play Goga if I'm playing backup centers, but he's not going to get much ownership, I wouldn't think. Same goes for Mobley. Not going to get any ownership. Probably going to not be useful, but there is some relatively small percent of the time that Mobley just plays a bunch of second half minutes and ends up being useful.
Anything else for the Spurs?
No.
It's a very interesting slate where you can kind of just draw a line through anybody that's not even like you got to be projected for a lot of fantasy points or be free. Those are your only two options. If you're projected for 28 fantasy points at 4,800, you are an unowned, useless person today. The Oklahoma City Thunder are 6.5 point favorites in Utah, 239 total. Oklahoma City wants this one. At least I assume they're trying to get the 10 seed. They want to win. This is a great matchup, and we know what they do. There is one complicating factor here for Oklahoma City. There is a Q tag on Lou Dort. I think that is pretty important. 10-2 for Shea, 7K for Jalen Williams, 5,800 for Dort, 8,600 for Giddey. Those are the only four guys that you can get to from Oklahoma City as far as I'm concerned. How crazy do you want to go on SGA?
I love getting to SGA here. You can trust this. This is such a bizarre time of the year and bizarre slate. You can trust the minutes for OKC guys. You can't trust the minutes for anybody else really. Which obviously is the polar opposite of what we said all year long. But this team has to win. SGA is going to play big minutes, barring fouling out or getting hurt. He's only 10-2, which again, salary doesn't matter that much, but it's not like you're paying any sort of premium on him anyway. He looks great. 45% projected ownership. 47% chance of being optimal. He showed up in like 50% of what I crunched at the start of the show. I absolutely love getting to SGA here. I also like getting to Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams, just because, again, even though they're a little bit overpriced for a game where SGA is playing, it just doesn't matter that much. You can pretend Giddey is 7,500 and Williams is 6K if it makes you feel better, and you're still going to get the same lineup builds basically. So, I like getting to those guys as well. They should play big minutes. They're good. Giddey's been a 1.2 DraftKings point per minute guy, even with SGA this year. Jalen Williams over the last couple of months has gotten up to about a fantasy point per minute in the games SGA has played. He's averaging like 34 minutes per game in that stretch as well. So I like those guys also. SGA just clearly projects better than them and is easy to get to.
Yeah, he looks great. I think it's an interesting discussion point of who's better, Joel Embiid or Shea, because you're definitely giving up. Like Joel Embiid is the higher projected guy. He at least is for me. But center's a little bit different, and there's at least some ambiguity in Joel Embiid's playing time, whereas you expect SGA to be playing 36 minutes in a competitive game today.
Right. If you can debate, I think, who should be projected higher between SGA and Embiid. It really comes down to how many minutes you're giving guys.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's also a really good matchup for SGA. Like, yes, you have a Utah team that doesn't defend well as a whole anyway, and they also do not have Walker Kessler protecting the rim. Should just be SGA doing whatever he wants.
Any limits to playing Oklahoma City guys together?
No.
Okay.
I mean, nothing that like matters.
Yeah.
I don't want a bunch of the other Jalen Williams and Dario Saric and Isaiah Joe together. But as far
I don't
as
I don't want one of those guys in the lineup.
Right. As far as the SGA, Giddey, Jalen Williams that you should play, and Lou Dort, I don't care how they fit together.
Okay. Anything else for the Thunder?
No.
And then we go to the Utah side, where we do have one guy pulling a ton of ownership. That's going to be Talen Horton-Tucker. Let's start with the ins and outs. No Lauri Markkanen, no Colin Sexton, no Clarkson, Gay, or Kessler. Talen Horton-Tucker is probable. He is pulling a ton of ownership, and as far as I'm concerned, he should be.
Yeah, I agree. Lofty and I were talking about it this morning. It was really entertaining the other day while Horton-Tucker was having a very good fantasy game. Just going, like, I was aware he was having a good game, but I wasn't watching the game. And then getting on Twitter and just seeing multiple Jazz beat writers being like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, his shot selection is so bad. This is awful, like blah, blah, blah. And like, you would have thought that Horton-Tucker was just, scoring like 12 fantasy points. Meanwhile, he has like 45 or something. But that's, kind of, it's one of those spots where I'm sure there's going to be people that are convinced by the end of the year, or already are, that Horton-Tucker should be starting somewhere. He's not a very good real life player, but he's getting a ton of opportunities on this Utah team. He's averaging 1.2 DraftKings points per minute without Markkanen or Clarkson on the floor. That's with a 51% true shooting percentage. So he has been awful in terms of efficiency, but he's going to just keep shooting. He's also got in your 30% assist percentage, and he should give you 30 to 32 minutes against in a decent matchup. So, he's just another one that's going to look good. He also has shooting guard, small forward eligibility, which is really nice.
Yeah, the flexibility here for THT is massive. Although the most likely scenario is he's showing up in guard or forward or utility, because you're probably locking in guard and forward a little bit earlier in the night. Who else are you willing to get here for Utah? To me, it's probably just Olynyk and maybe Chris Dunn. I don't know if I would even want to go to anything else.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of Olynyk, a little bit of Chris Dunn. You could make a case for getting to a little bit of Samanic if he starts as well. He started last game, played 22 minutes. There were certainly minutes available for him to play more. He's getting 10% ownership. We have him with a 16% chance of being optimal. I thought he should be around 10%. So I'm on board with the 10% ownership, but any of those guys are fine ways to, be relatively different. None of them look great. I did mention in my NBA notes article earlier today that I thought people were sleeping on the combination of Azubuike and Damian Jones too much, but I don't feel that way anymore now that we've gotten Orlando and everything opened up. They did combine for 48 minutes last game. The bulk went to Damian Jones, but that is sort of appealing in general at no ownership. But now that you just have everything in that price range where you're not taught, it just becomes a lot more difficult to get to either of them.
Yeah, if I'm going to avoid one of the like freebie centers, I still have to dodge Joel Embiid smashing. Right. There's also that like added question mark of if Embiid goes out and drops 65, I don't give a shit what I have for Damian Jones at that point.
And you also need to avoid Zach Collins just giving you like 50.
That's a great point too. That's another like functionally real center for today's slate. Race Fan wants to know our projection and minutes on Bol and Diakite.
While you're looking that up, I'll answer where to go. Chris Wassam said Damian Jones played 32 minutes last game. Does he hit those minutes again?
Overtime.
No. He played 5 minutes in overtime. He played 27 in regulation. Azubuike played 21. That's sort of what I was getting at, was you're going to get 48 minutes combined between those two. Sometimes it's going to be 26, 27 for Damian Jones. Sometimes it'll be 26 for Azubuike. But on this particular slate at this point, even if you promise me that Damian Jones plays 26 minutes, I'm probably not really playing him.
Yeah, I treated it like that Damian Jones comes off the bench, plays the normal 2 bench rotations, and then closes. That was my assumption.
Up probably around like 24 or something.
I think I went like 25-23 or something like that. I don't have it in front of me right now. And like, he doesn't have to close. That could just be Olynyk, but neither here nor there. Bol we have at 29 minutes and 31 fantasy points. Diakite we have at 27 minutes and 25 fantasy points. Anything else we should be touching on here for Utah? I don't really see anything.
I don't think so.
Did we talk about Olynyk at all with anything of importance?
He's there.
Yep. Okay. Alrighty, folks. One last call for likes before we finish this one off. Final game, and then we get to NBA Live before lock. The lineup generator for PGA has been brought to the public, and it's $250 for your first week if you want to get in. Did you miss out on getting into the Masters today? You sure did. However, you can still check it out if you want to play golf moving forward. Like I said, $250 for your first week. Operates just like the other lineup generators that we have for NFL and for NBA. You can make contrarian, chalky, balanced lineups, lock golfers in if you'd like, export up to 20 via CSV. But $250 for the first week, can't beat that deal. All right, the Denver Nuggets, who I do not have updated in my stuff, so we are going to work our way through this one live on the show. They dropped some news before we got started. No Jamal Murray, no Nikola Jokic, Q tag on KCP, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Zeke Naji. I mean, the Murray and the Jokic pieces are helpful, but obviously the Q tags on the rest of the starting lineup change up everything that we're doing here.
Yeah, this team certainly has the potential to manage or to matter a lot. Porter and Gordon were both downgraded to questionable during the day. I assume they're not going to play, but who knows? If they end up missing this game, you get a situation where, Bruce Brown at 6,300 is going to look better. Then you get, I don't know, maybe Peyton Watson playing more. Jeff Green is 4K. He should get minutes. Christian Brown, Reggie Jackson. The problem is that this team's actually relatively expensive.
Yeah. Well, the real problem here is that if we don't get this news until 9:30, whatever they're doing is meaningless anyway.
Right. So I guess the way that I would think about it is if we had all the information up front, like if we get everybody rolled out right now, the salaries aren't really a problem in that you can still make lineups that have, a 5K Reggie Jackson or $6,300 Bruce Brown or whatever it may be. And because they would be a little bit lower owned and they would still be reasonable contrarian plays because you have plenty of value elsewhere. The problem is that I'm not saving spots for these guys because I don't think any of them look like, the best play on the slate if news breaks my way. If I save spots for them and news breaks my way, I'm getting low ownership on decent plays, which is cool. But if news doesn't break my way, I'm just completely screwed on a slate where there were 100 good plays I could have made instead.
So let's just say that you get it all right now. KCP out, Porter Jr. out, Aaron Gordon out. What is actually viable from Denver right now?
I'm trying to find, what was the last game they did that? Golden Snow?
Friday.
They did it recently. Phoenix?
Friday was everybody but Gordon. So the 31st.
Right. So you got Reggie Jackson starting in that game. He played 34 minutes. At 5K, that would look very good. Christian Brown played 29. That would look fine at 5K. DeAndre Jordan got the start in that one. He played 21 minutes. Don't know where they would go at center. Jeff Green has been typically the guy. Bruce Brown played a bunch of minutes. He's 6,300. That would be fine. It's just there would be a lot of plays, kind of like I was saying, there would be a lot of plays that would be good, like Reggie Jackson or Bruce Brown or Jeff Green if he's starting, DeAndre Jordan if he's starting. But none of them are plays that, like, if I don't have them because we don't get the news until 9:30 or 8:30 or whatever, I'm not going to feel like there's a bunch of teams that are going to catch me because they just got these amazing plays. There's decent plays here if these guys get ruled out, but there's so many other good plays that it's not worth the risk of being stuck with having to go to guys from Denver that, if guys are ruled in.
Yeah, none of these guys are going to be projecting for 35 plus fantasy points. And at that point in time, you're pretty far behind the 8 ball for trying to get those guys into lineups. So I don't really think the Denver news matters all that much unless they leave one of Porter or Gordon in. If Aaron Gordon's playing today, he's going to look pretty interesting at 7,200. And if MPJ is playing today without those other guys, then I'm interested at 6,100 because he just becomes they become the focal point of everything. But otherwise, I don't find Denver to be all that interesting, and they might hemorrhage their entire starting lineup.
Yeah, exactly. Again, if you got confirmation right now that the Q tag guys were in, I would like Aaron Gordon, I would like Michael Porter, I would like Bruce Brown, I wouldn't like anything else. If you get word that all of the starters are out, I would still like Bruce Brown. I would like Reggie Jackson. I would like whoever's starting at center, but I still wouldn't like them more than the Orlando guys.
Rubio or Bol, last man in for race fan.
Bol.
Yeah, I agree. Close it out with Phoenix. To me, this is the most complicated piece of the slate. right now they don't have a single thing on their injury report. But,
did you see the quote from Doc Rivers that SMP posted?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Just what I was expecting.
Yeah.
How do you want to handle Phoenix? What do you want to do with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant? Because you can certainly get to them.
Yeah, I think just kind of playing them here and there makes sense. Booker showing up around 13% for me, Durant showing up around 17%. That was, again, before we got the Orlando starting lineup, so that might change a bit. But they're just coming in a range where, yes, their playing time is risky. We don't know how many minutes they're going to play. Phoenix is playing for absolutely nothing. But you're still talking about a very easy to get to at sub 10K prices on a slate with all the value in the world. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. It's kind of similar to like Embiid. If Durant only plays 30 minutes, there's still a world where he just puts up 55 DraftKings points and is a really good play. Same goes for Devin Booker. Even Ayton and Paul, I think you can get to. I have a more difficult time making the case for them just because they're less likely to score 50 plus raw points. Like they can beat their salary, but they're less likely to put up a score where it's like, oh shit, like I actually need those points. Whereas Durant and Booker, even in 30 minutes, can do it.
It's an interesting spot. I'm shocked that, like, don't be surprised to see a very flat, extended Phoenix rotation with nothing to play for. Don't be surprised to see all of those starters get put on ice for the fourth quarter. I think both of those things are realistic possibilities.
Did they have anything to play for last game against San Antonio?
No idea.
Because they played that one completely straight up. Chris Paul played 32 and a half. They subbed out with 3 minutes to go. Chris Paul played 32 and a half minutes. Durant played 33 and a half. Booker played 33. Ayton played 29.
I mean, they could conceivably have been caught by the Clippers or the Warriors. I don't know where the Suns do have both of those tiebreakers, though. They were never running down the Kings, so they could have never. Well, no, I guess they could have never run down. Did they win?
They did win, yes.
Okay. Then they could have never run down the Kings. So in theory, they were still live to fall to 5 or 6, but I think that win probably locked it in. Just based on what I can see here.
I guess my point is, like, I think it's likely that you get a little, like an extended rotation or not as many minutes, but I don't think it's completely off the table that you get 34 minutes from Booker, Durant.
Oh, no, I'm with you there. I think they're ripe for, like, taking their foot off the gas a little bit earlier if this game goes any sort of weird way.
Sure.
Tim Strong, final super chat before we get out of here. Best utility play, 8,400 or less on DraftKings. Talen Horton-Tucker, not close.
Yep.
Fun slate, man. This is going to be a good one.
Let's hope so.
Enjoy it, everybody, but don't go anywhere. Live Before Lock is coming up next. Thank you to Sorare for being the sponsor of this show. Good luck, everybody. Enjoy the ridiculousness of it all. We're out of here. Peace.
Yo, it's that time of week again, and we have a lot of people entering or re-entering the Hall of Fame right here on the Stochastic YouTube channel. If you guys are trying to get involved, you want to get a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum, $120 value. You want to get inducted into the Hall of Fame right here. All you got to do is download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar and tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF like everybody did today. And for this week, get yourself a free month. Get yourself inducted into the Hall of Fame. We got a lot of good ones today. Let's get straight into it. Starting off with our boy, Peter Hanley. It's been a while, but I can still win. Yeah, dude, Peter went on a mega heater a little while back, but it looks like he's back on top. $100,000 win there, rocking the Stochastic avatar. Glad to see you back up here, man. Absolutely huge win. And how about Jackson Blake? Not sure if this counts, but I just punched the ticket to the FBWC. Thank you to the Stochastic team and all the tools they provide. Best tools in the business. $60,000 right there, the Fantasy Baseball World Championship. Dude wasted no time getting in on that. Congrats, Jackson. And Jacob took down my first 5-digit win. Listen to you guys every day and love the content. Boom, $10,000 in the NBA layup. Everything looks beautiful there. Just got to get that Stochastic avatar, man. But this counts. No problem at all. Nice work, Jacob. Kevin Driscoll, finally getting around the posting. Didn't feel like playing. Came in late from work, but glad I did. Live before lock plus the lineup generator plus late swap equals the win 2K. First place in the pick and roll. What do we get? Second out of 53,000 in the fadeaway. Huge stuff, man. I love seeing that. And then Jorge, our boy Jorge, getting a little sneaky here with the Stochastic edit, but that's okay because Jorge has been one of the most supportive people on the channel and in the community for a long time. Turned 75 into 800, getting third place on the Golf DK Mini Max without knowing anything about golf, but knowing how to read the amazing tools by the Stochastic team. I tell you guys all the time, sometimes you don't need to know these sports, just know how to use the tools. Special shout out to Jazz Raz and Eric Lindquist for amazing tips and information provided. Keep this one rolling. We got a lot today. D-Fick, what's better than an end of season bink? Thanks, Ship My Money, Player Q DFS for the great content yesterday. How about that? $1,000, 10K mini max. Love it. Whew. All right, I got to catch my breath here. Schwab's dad, 23 seconds away from chopping first place for 7K. Garbage time Kawhi layup, and then 2 Trey Murphy free throws. Force me in the fourth. ROI still crazy, though. Thanks for the tools. I hope this secures a free month. 50K Saturday NBA shot, $750. $4 in the 750. Massive ROI. And Alamar, second appearance in the Hall of Fame this calendar year. Thanks to the fellas and all the Live Before Lock crew helping us create winning lineups. Forgot my free month last time, but baseball's here. I'll need that Stochastic Hall of Fame. Let's get it. You got it, man. You got it. Free month coming your way. Paul, thanks to the guys at Stochastic. From this past Friday slate, I was able to take second in the quarter, ninth in the $4. Although I wish I had these entries switched over. Regardless, profit's a profit. Thank you, guys. Yeah, dude, $200 in the jukebox is a very nice profit. Michael Diaz, Stochastic, a win is a win. Yeah, it is. Second place in the mini max. Again, dude, you guys crushing with the tools and the shows in the mini max. You love to see that. And Luba, thanks, Stochastic, for the assist on that one and another few good scores. Yesterday's NHL slate. Keep up the great content. Another quarter jukebox bink. How about we've got Michael Thomas. Was running late to film my 20 max NBA fadeaway in the FanDuel. Hit up the lineup generator. I tell you guys all the time, half off, less than $4.50 for the first week. Finished third out of 19,000. I'll take that 50, and I wish another free month, but it may be too soon. Well, you could have worse problems. Yes, Laffy, I'm rocking the new logo. Don't want to get in trouble. My man. Shout out to Michael Thomas. And that's the Stochastic Hall of Fame from Patty Boy. $100 in the fadeaway. Got a few more here before we close it out. Bill, the good news hit for 5,000x my buy-in. Unfortunately, it was in the 5-cent buy-in. Wish I had built more of a bankroll, but have to start somewhere. Yeah, man. And that is one way to do it. Thanks for all the info and video, guys. I'll take my free month now. First place in the wiffle ball, $250. It's as big a win as any. And then I am King Sosa, $100, man of few words. At Stochastic Hall of Fame. Third place in the wiffle ball. We close it out with the game. Picked up top 3 showing and some decent change in late night jukebox to push a little in the NBA these last few weeks after retooling the approach and getting some mojo before getting Greg and Neil late night games review in the lock vid. Congrats to everybody. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. You've now been inducted. Download the avatar. Rock it wherever it is you play. Tweet your wins as Stochastic HOF and pick up your free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum.
What is happening, everybody? It is time for more NBA Live Before Lock, and only a few of these left, Neil. I don't know how many shows you have left on your schedule. For myself, though, I've got today, I've got Friday, I've got Saturday. Sunday's my off day, and that's the last day of the NBA regular season. Then we're into the playoffs, so I'm looking forward to the playoffs. Some of these slates are a little silly at this point because we have more narratives to talk about now than we typically would. We're going to get more into that in a little bit. And, typically we do avoid talking about stuff like narratives, but I do think it's really pertinent for this part of the season because, what are teams playing for? What is the motivation to give guys full minutes? What is the motivation to even play guys at all? That's also something that's going to become relevant when we're trying to figure out some of these players today. So as you guys come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and shout out to Sorare, who is sponsoring our show today. We're going to be talking about more about Sorare as we go along. We're going to build some Sorare lineups later on the post-lock show. So it's going to be a fun one. How's your day going?
It's going all right. The Sorare, I'm not looking forward to looking at that as much today because my lineups are not doing that great. I forgot to enter them before we were live on a show on Monday, and just barely at the last minute, I was like, oh, I gotta go enter those. So I entered some lineups at that point, but yeah, it's not looking so hot for me this week.
Who's been dunning you in? Who did you in?
I got at least one DNP in there. I forgot. I'm not going to look at it right now, but I got one DNP. I got a Kai Jones really let me down. I know that. Had him in my main lineup. Didn't put up a lot of fantasy points. So kind of a disappointment there. But overall, happy to be here. It's Thursday night. I love a Thursday night. Almost the weekend. Excited to talk some basketball.
Yeah, and we've got a bunch of players have already been ruled out. So we'll be talking about some of the value that's available. It's only a 5-game slate. And maybe some of the most value we've seen on any slate for the entire season, including 13-game slates, which it's just a factor of the amount of teams that are holding players out for some of these meaningless games. And then in addition to that, even some teams like Orlando, Orlando hasn't played a meaningful game in months at this point, but even them, they've decided to hold out a whole bunch of players for tanking purposes. So you got a team like Orlando that Wendell Carter Jr., Paulo Banchero, Markelle Fultz, Gary Harris, Franz Wagner, their entire starting 5 isn't playing today. So lots of value to look at as we go through. And then in addition to the value we already have, as if we needed more players to get ruled out, Shaedon Sharpe is questionable. If the Blazers are tanking so heavily that they can't even play Shaedon Sharpe at this point of the year, but that's a possibility. Keldon Johnson is questionable. Tyrese Maxey is questionable. Aaron Gordon is questionable. Michael Porter Jr. is questionable. Lou Dort is questionable. So a lot of moving pieces and a lot of players that should be getting ruled out over the course of the show and opening up even more additional value for us. The one thing that's interesting that I want to talk to you about from an overall strategy perspective here, Neil, we've got a ton of value. That's very clear. We don't have that many pay-up options, though. How does this impact the way the initial builds of your lineups are looking?
So I haven't done any builds just yet, but I would imagine it's going to be still pretty stars and scrubsy. My guess is that we would, if I do run lineups right now, it's going to force in a lot of Embiid, SGA, Harden. The guys who project the best are just going to make it into a lot of lineups because it's so easy to get to them, with the value being, I think, better than just about, maybe better than I've seen on any slate this entire year. Just like across the board, we have so much value with so much potential that I think my lineup's just going to still turn out pretty stars and scrubsy. I saw a question earlier about leaving salary on the table. I think you could. It's one, like, I'm not trying to force salary to be left on the table, but I'm just going to let my lineups do their thing. If I have some lineups that do leave salary on the table, like I think I would not set a minimum salary today. Like I would like early in the season. I think sometimes it's suggested that you should set a minimum salary of like leaving 400 or 600 on the table. I'm not going to do that today because I think this is a day where some of the mid-range plays could outscore some of these studs.
Yeah. So listen to this to that point. I'm just looking at some of my lineups and my highest projected lineups. So highest projected, no rule set, just these are the ones that project the best when I run through lineups using my projections. Some of my highest projected lineups, actually my 5th highest projected lineup tonight, leaves $900 in salary in the table on DraftKings.
How much you say?
900 for my 5th highest projected lineup.
Yeah, that's I thought for a second you said 9,000, and I was like, there's no way that's right. So that's why I had to ask.
Yeah, 900. So it's, let's see, how many close to min price guys does it have in it? People are just going to be able to figure out what this lineup is after I say some of these players, because it's just these guys and then like all of the pay up options. But but the lineup has Ricky Rubio, it is Chetty Osman, Bol and Mo Wagner. And to your point, there are these guys that are 3,000, 3,100, 3,400 that project better than players who are $1,000, $2,000 more expensive than them. So yeah, I really don't think that it's ridiculous to leave within reason salary on the table today. So let me see across my highest projected lineups. Yeah, I have one of my other lineups that also is one of my higher projected ones is $2,000 of salary left on the table. So it's really not that ridiculous to leave a bunch of salary on the table within reason. Like I'm not going to have in lineups that have like the $6,000 or $7,000 salary left on the table, but yeah, I'm going to have some lineups that have like $2,500 around there salary left over. And I still think some of those should be projecting really well considering the outlook of the slate. So more stuff to go through as we get news, we talk through this, but let's go through some of the questions we've already gotten as far as the super chats go. And if you guys have questions in Discord, at us. We're going to be answering all of those as we go along. Being in Discord, it is one of the perks of being a Stochastic Plus Platinum member. First from Michael McKinney. Hello.
Good to see you again, Michael. I feel like I haven't seen you in a while.
That's it. That's the entire, there's nothing else to it. There was no question. If you have a question, Michael McKinney, which let me check to see if he put anything else in. Oh, he did. He left a follow-up super chat after that. So he did give us 2 super chats. The next one, this is his normal, I would say his normal question, but it hasn't been asked for us in a minute, but 5 favorite FanDuel cash game plays. And then he says, thanks in advance. So here are the players I got the most of when I ran FanDuel lineups and players that I think are all really strong cash options. Mo Wagner, Chetty Osman, SGA, Ricky Rubio, Bol. This is a really tricky slate to build cash lineups because there are so many good points per dollar plays. But for FanDuel, just to reiterate, Michael McKinney, these are the guys I'd consider the 5 best. Mo Wagner, Chetty Osman, SGA, Ricky Rubio, Bol. Now, I want to ask you, Neil, considering that we have all this value and kind of a limited amount of players to spend up for, is there one spend up option you prefer over the others?
All right, let me take a look at specific spend up options.
I have an answer and a reason for the answer that I'll give. And it ties into me before when I was talking about that I have to weight narratives for me a little bit heavier at this point in the season, just because there's certain spots like I just don't know what to do with some of the minutes and whatnot of like a Kevin Durant today. The Nuggets are resting everybody. This game is not all that important to the Suns. Are they going to go out and they're going to play Kevin Durant his normal minutes? I would say probably not. So it's stuff like that that is going to lead to how I would, approach or project certain players. Kind of the same we were talking about the Wizards the last couple of days. I was finally on the right side of Kendrick Nunn, right?
You were on the nice job.
There we go. I went 1 for 2 on him.
Yeah.
But the reasoning for why I thought the minutes were going to be what they were the last couple of slates is because what do the Wizards need to play Kendrick Nunn a bunch of minutes for? They should be wanting to play guys like Johnny Davis, who they actually have, future stock invested in. So when I'm looking at today's slate and the narrative that is most important to me as far as projections go, this is a massively important game between the Utah Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder. As a result of that and the leverage of this game, I think SGA plays more minutes than normal. And I also think there's opportunity for him to take on a bigger workload in terms of ball handling duties, in terms of usage, because of how important this game is. If we look at the standings right now in the Western Conference, more or less, if OKC wins this, they lock up a play-in spot. If they lose this game, things get dicey for them. They are currently tied in the win-loss column with the Dallas Mavericks, but they hold the tiebreaker, so they're ahead of them by that. If they lose this game and the Mavericks win the next 2, the Mavericks pass them in the standings. The other thing as well, the Utah Jazz are a game and a half behind OKC in the standings, so the Jazz would move to just half a game behind the Thunder. So if the Thunder are really going to try to make the play-in game, which based on their injury report today, I think they're going to. They haven't ruled out key players like they have in the past. I think we see SGA play maybe even upwards of 40 minutes and really take on a big role. So I like him as my favorite pay-up option on the slate because not only does he just normally project well, he's SGA, he's got a great matchup against the Jazz, but I also feel really, really secure about his role, where it's hard for me to feel that same way about somebody like a Kevin Durant that I just mentioned.
Yeah, I was going to say SGA as well. Just looking at the high end options, he does feel the safest by far. Embiid, as we talked about a little bit before the show, we think he's probably playing a full game, but certainly not guaranteed there. There's a lot of volatility there. SGA just feels so much safer than any other. I mean, I think Harden too, I think doesn't feel all that safe. I think SGA is the safest pay up option and probably the biggest priority for me, even though Embiid does project a little bit better for us.
Yeah. And there's other parts of it too. So personally, I have Embiid and SGA really close. I actually have SGA a little bit ahead because I just gave him a little bit of a minutes bump. But the other thing too is Joel Embiid could go one of a couple ways. You and I were talking about this before the show because Jordan had asked, Jordan, by the way, massive heater on Prize Picks. So shout out to Jordan Klein. Jordan, turn your mic on and tell people how much money you won on Prize Picks yesterday. Go. Oh,
Jordan's refusing.
Look at Jordan being all coy.
He's all
and he
modest.
doesn't tell people the way Jordan won all that money on Prize Picks. He just faded Eric. He played the opposite and just it was incredible. That's what he told me his strategy was going to be. But yeah, so Jordan doesn't want to tell people, but he had a big hit on Prize Picks yesterday. I'm trying to big up our producer here. And he had asked me about Joel Embiid and if I thought he was going to play full minutes before the show. We were talking about his outlook. It's so tricky because this game does not really mean anything for the Philadelphia 76ers. But, well, at least in terms of the standings. But the reason it matters is because they really care, seemingly, about Joel Embiid winning the MVP. So I am still going to expect a fairly normal workload for Embiid just because I think it's so important for the Sixers to try to pump up his stats and get him the MVP. So that's the reason why I'm still apt to play a bunch of Joel Embiid and maybe a little bit less so a guy like Kevin Durant for those reasons. But how do you view Kevin Durant as a pay-up option today in a game now that has a massively wide spread? We've got the Suns favored by double digits. It's not an important game for Phoenix. The Nuggets are resting everybody. Durant has had injury issues. Like, how do you weigh these factors and look at a great player like Kevin Durant, where we have so much value, a limited amount of spend-up options, but I still kind of find it tricky to get to KD.
It is tricky. So we haven't projected for 32 minutes, which feels like a pretty reasonable projection. He's played 34, 35, 33 the past 3 games out. But yeah, he hasn't really been producing all that much. There's definitely big risk here of Durant losing some time to a blowout. He is only projected for about 14% ownership. So I guess that makes him a little bit interesting because he's 9,300. He's Kevin Durant. I mean, if he does get up to 32 minutes, as I said, we know that Kevin Durant can put up a big score if he does get to like 32 minutes, but there's a lot of volatility. It's definitely a very risky play. Also, though, like we don't need necessarily 65 out of Kevin Durant on this slate. We might not have anybody like putting up huge scores at the top end just because there's so much risk involved with like all of the top end guys that I'd still be willing to play some Kevin Durant. Like, I don't think he's a full fade. I just think that he is somebody that you got to know if you're playing Kevin Durant, there's a lot of risk inherent there.
Yeah, for sure. So that's why I'm higher on Embiid and I'm higher on SGA than I am Durant. So if we're talking about the upper echelon of spend up options, which I'm going to put these guys in. Well, I guess James Harden should be included in that top tier as well. Like, I consider Kevin Durant better than James Harden, but Harden is more expensive. Devin Booker is. But if I'm going to rank the top end guys, so the players that are 9K and above, it is SGA 1 for me. And a couple of reasons, like I said, projection, also the position, and he's a lot cheaper than Joel Embiid. So SGA 1, Embiid 2. I do have Harden 3 right now, Durant 4, and then not really getting to Devin Booker right now. Do you have a way that you would look at prioritizing kind of a ranks for the high-end guys?
Yeah, for the high-end guys, I'm with you on SGA number 1, probably Embiid number 2. James Harden, they don't have quite the same incentive to play him as they do with Embiid. They're not trying to get Harden the MVP. So I think I would go SGA, Embiid, maybe Jimmy Butler, followed by Harden, followed by Kevin, maybe actually Kevin Durant ahead of Harden there. So maybe SGA, Embiid, Durant, Butler, Harden, I think is where I would go.
Okay. By the way, I like Jimmy Butler as well.
Okay.
He just wasn't in the pricing tier that I'd included there.
Gotcha.
He wasn't one of the guys who's above 9K, but I'm with you. I'm playing Jimmy Butler today. The Heat do have something to play for, and I think we should see extended minutes out of their core guys. Now let's go into Discord. I did just see that I got a notification for a question. And here we go. We got a couple of them in here. First from Miami High Life. I love my and this is him. I'm reading what he said. This isn't me saying that I love something. Miami High Life's words. I love my DK single entry GPP. I have 7,600 left in the utility spot open. Thoughts on Bam as the last guy in, or drop down and grab a cheaper guy like Kelly O and leaving money on the table? All right, so he's got $7,600 left in utility. Who would we recommend? That's pretty clearly Bam for me.
Yep, it'd be Bam for me too.
Yep, so Miami High Life, go with Bam. And considering his name is Miami High Life, I assume he likes Bam.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty good chance of that. So go ahead and play Bam. Manny has left us a question in Discord, wants to know our thoughts on THT. So Talen Horton-Tucker, he wants to know our thoughts on THT. So interesting spot for him. We've got a bunch of guys that have already been ruled out for the Jazz. THT is going to be in there, right? He's one of their only regular guys that, well, I'm not going to say one of their only regular, but there's no Markkanen, there's no Clarkson tonight. And THT's minutes have been much more secure as of late than they were 2-3 weeks ago. Remember, there was that point where he was kind of splitting minutes with Chris Dunn. It was kind of tricky to project both of them. It's the THT show now. Last few games, 37, 34, 31, 30, and 35 minutes for Talen Horton-Tucker. He has scored 45 or more fantasy points in all of those games. And I think this is another spot for him, kind of like what I talked about with SGA before, where I think we could feel really good about his role, considering he's already playing big minutes as of late. And there's still an outside chance for the Jazz to make the play-in. And I think we're going to see big minutes out of Talen Horton-Tucker. So in the current run of lineups that I've done, even at the elevated price point, he's one of my more rostered players. THT, as expensive as we've ever seen him, but do you think it's too expensive, Neil?
No, not on this slate. I think 8,100, easy to pay up for 8,100 for THT. He actually projects pretty well for us, which on this slate, I mean, it's all relative. He projects for just over 5x, which great on a lot of slates. On this slate, not necessarily, but we don't have that many, spend off options we really want to get to. I think I'm going to play a lot of THT. Love the matchup with OKC. Love that he's the alpha right now. So yeah, it's not too expensive for me.
And kind of interesting, just because it's something that Ryan Houston brought up in the chat here. He said, does him being listed as probable in the midday injury report worry me? No, I still think he plays. In general, if somebody's probable, I think they're going to play. There are some exceptions, right? So yesterday, Giannis was listed as probable, and I go, that's bullshit. There's no chance Giannis plays. Unfortunately, I was correct that he wasn't going to play, and it absolutely destroyed me because I bet every single Chris Middleton prop I could possibly find. No. And what happens? Chris, like rebounds, assists, points, triple-double, him to be the leading scorer in the game. Great closing line value. I felt great about it. And then he gets injured in the first quarter. Not only does he not return, looks like he might not play the rest of the regular season. But with that said, that aside, generally, if somebody's listed as probable, I think they are going to play. That's how I feel about THT today. I'm not really worrying about that.
We got a few super chats if you didn't see.
Yep, I did.
Okay.
Do you have any concerns about THT?
No concerns about THT. Yeah, he's got a probable tag, even though it was a midday downgrade to probable. I care about a midday downgrade to questionable or worse, but probable, he's still probably going to play.
All right, so let's move on and answer some more of these super chats. First, from James Downing. He says, hey, fellas, what is the most overrated value piece? And thanks for all of the insight. I love that question. Let's look at the most recent ownership projections and try to find which player is the most overowned as a piece of value today.
I mean, I can tell you what the boom bust says right away, which is Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs projected for 48% ownership, 28% chance to be an optimal, 62% chance of booming. So like from that perspective, still looks great, but we do have him optimal only 28% of the time at 48% ownership. So just doesn't look at all that great in the boom bust tool. Whether that's the best answer that I want to give, I'm going to keep looking, but just off the top of the boom bust tool looks pretty overowned there.
Yeah, I'm close to even with the field on Jalen Suggs.
I think I might be too, so that's why I want to keep looking. But
yeah, and by the way, I feel that way about, so there's a bunch of guys that are projected for a ton of ownership, and you could say like, all right, technically, is Ricky Rubio actually going to be in an optimal lineup 65% of the time? The answer is probably not, but I'm playing a bunch of Ricky Rubio. Like a lot of these guys, like Ricky Rubio projects well. He should be really highly owned. Mo Wagner, Chetty Osman, Jalen Suggs. I really do think a lot of these guys are rightfully projected as high as they are. Let me see if there's any that I'm like not anywhere close to the field on.
Looks like Bruce Brown is getting some ownership. He's so number 2 on the list there.
Yeah, here's part of the issue with that though, is as things stand now, you could say, all right, maybe Bruce Brown's a little bit overowned, but we also currently have Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope on the injury report. Considering that Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic have already been ruled out, like why would KCP, Aaron Gordon, and Michael Porter Jr. play?
Good point.
And in that case, Bruce Brown goes from like, hey, is he a little bit overowned to, oh my God, he's drastically underowned.
Yeah, no, that is, and he's also, I think he asked for value, right? So maybe Bruce Brown doesn't fit anyway.
Value. Honestly, here's well, he's also not really a value piece.
And he also wanted chalk. So I'm looking at we've got some overowned guys, but they're all not all that chalky anyway.
So here's one that I am really not getting to. And he's not as popular as the other ones, but about 20% ownership going to Lamar Stevens. The other guys that are popular, I think, should be way more popular than Lamar Stevens, even more so than what they are. So when we've got some of these guys like a Bol who's 40% owned, and by the way, Shaden Sharper's just ruled out, so we'll have to talk about that on a second. And we've got Lamar Stevens 20% owned, or Bol at 40%. I prefer the Bol side of that, even if I think the 2x difference in ownership is not wide enough, because Lamar Stevens is just not really all that good of a fantasy producer. And then you get somebody like, Bol, Mo Wagner, some of these magic pieces that are also in good spots. They're just better fantasy producers than Lamar Stevens. So I don't doubt that Stevens' points per dollar is going to have a good game, but I would much rather play some of these other popular cheap guys. So I'm going to give Lamar Stevens as my over-owned one. How's that?
I was actually thinking about Lamar. The only reason I didn't go there is because he's not that chalky. So I was like, I don't know if he qualifies, but yeah, he's I guess kind of chalky. So I love it because he is the worst fantasy producer of the higher owned cheap guys.
The next question here, Race Fan 22, Okiki or Bol on DK projections, Bol. Let me see what the difference I have between them is. Okiki or Bol. Yeah, I have Bol for about 6.5 more fantasy points. So that's the answer. And even wider than that in our projections, where we have them like over 8-point difference between them. But either way, clearly Bol. Both of them really cheap. And it's funny, like Okiki is somebody who points per dollar projects really well for me. Over 20 fantasy points at min price. More often than not, that's a guy that we're playing on small slates. I can't get to Okiki today because there are other min price guys that are like 7, 8, 9 fantasy points projected better than him. Bol.
Yep.
Next question is from Juan Camarena. He wants to know about DK tiers before he heads out. So yeah, no problem. We'll answer that. And we still got the Shaden Sharp. So I'm going to answer all of the outstanding questions, and then we'll talk about Shaden Sharp. I don't want anybody to think that I've left that hanging. And Lou Dort listed available to play, so we don't have to change anything for OKC. But just to reiterate, we have Shaden Sharp out, and we'll talk about the implications of that in a second. As for DK tiers for our guy Juan, tier 1 for me is SGA. And I think there's a chance too that he'll be, well, not a chance. I think he should be lower owned than Joel Embiid there. So I'm going to lean with SGA just because of OKC being in this spot where they really are motivated to get SGA as many minutes as he could possibly handle. Tier 2 for me is James Harden. Tier 3, Jimmy Butler. Tier 4, Bam Adebayo, especially Bam Adebayo now that Shaden Sharp is out, because he was my second one. Tier 5 is Zach Collins. And tier 6, and then by the way, also keep in mind with some of these players, just look out for the injury report. Zach Collins is listed as probable, so no concerns there, but just bringing that up in general. But yeah, still Zach Collins in tier 5, and then tier 6 for me is going to be Keldon Johnson. So now Keldon Johnson is listed as questionable. So we don't know if Keldon Johnson is going to be in or out. As of right now, I have him in tier 6. If Keldon Johnson is out, the answer becomes Skylar Mays now, which actually I'm gonna add a couple caveats to this. Tier 6 is Keldon Johnson. If Keldon Johnson is ruled out, it would be Skylar Mays, with Shaden Sharp just ruled out. But Bruce Brown is also in tier 6. So if Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., those guys all get ruled out, which I think is fairly likely, then it becomes Bruce Brown. All right, so there's a couple of different ways to approach those tiers there, Juan. Hopefully that helps you out there. Also, shout out to Malakar, who gifted out some memberships in the YouTube chat.
Nice.
Next super chat here is from Michael Zaragoza. Michael wants to know, is Thomas Bryant a play? Get away from all the chalk and have a piece in the late night. It's been tough because it's not like they've been committed to giving Thomas Bryant minutes. We saw the one start from him where he came out, started, played some bigger minutes, but they've kind of gotten away from that in recent games. Even with Jokic out, they've been going to DeAndre Jordan.
He hasn't even played.
Yeah, I don't love the idea of playing DeAndre Jordan, but I can't really. So here are the last few games for Thomas Bryant. 3 games in a row is the DNP coach's decision. The game before that, he started. He played really poorly. 14 minutes, got into foul trouble, sucked. The game was a blowout. He only scored 9 fantasy points. I can't advocate for Thomas Bryant.
Agreed.
And How about this? Is there anybody else? Would you consider DeAndre Jordan if he's looking for somebody as a lower owned value option? The answer for me is no, but
I'd be more inclined to go to somebody from the Blazers probably than to go to somebody from the Nuggets here.
So let's talk about the Blazers then. It's a good transition. We just got news that Shaedon Sharpe is going to be out, and we still have Trendon Watford listed as questionable. This injury report, by the way, is absolutely hilarious. There are more players listed out on the Blazers injury report than are listed in right now. Well, I guess technically you don't really get listed in, just in general. We've got Jeremy Grant out, Damian Lillard out, Yusuf Nurkic out, Cam Reddish is questionable, Trendon Watford is questionable, Shaedon Sharpe is out now, Anthony Simons is out, Matisse Thybulle is doubtful, Nasir Little is out, Ibu Baji is out, Keon Johnson is out, Justice Winslow is out. So in terms of players that we just know are active right now for the Blazers, these are the names. It's just an insane list of names in terms of a who's who. And when I say who's who, I don't mean it in the way of like, oh, look at all the star set. I mean a who's who in terms of who the fuck are these guys? Like that kind of who's who. Yeah. This is who is available for Portland today. And I'm going to count how many players it is now. Drew Eubanks, Skylar Mays, Kevin Knox, Jonathan Williams, who I think his name was supposed to be Jonathan and his parents misspelled it and they'd never thought to correct it. Shaq Harrison, Jabari Walker, John Butler Jr., Justin Minaya. That is 8 players. If Reddish and Watford both play, that would be 10, but I think it's somewhat likely to both get ruled out. There's a chance there's only going to be 8 active players for Portland, and they're all terrible guys. So, I mean, this is a team where we're really going to have to get some value from. Who stands out the most to you, though?
Yeah, somebody's got to score fantasy points, right? Like they're going to put up some NBA points. Somebody, especially if there's only 8 of them available, somebody's going to be putting up some fantasy points, and most of them are relatively cheap. I have some interest in Shaq Harrison. I would say 4,200 projects pretty well for us. What do we have Shaq here? We have him in for 28 minutes right now. Could be more if more are ruled out for the Blazers. So I do have interest in Shaq Harrison. Jonathan Williams. Don't know much about him, but we have him projected for just under 28 minutes, over 0.9 fantasy points per minute. There's obviously upside for more minutes there, and he's down at 4,000. Some of the guys have already been priced up a little bit for the Blazers. So like I would want to play. I do have some interest in Kevin Knox at 5,200. So I shouldn't say I would want to play him. He's not as he is just not as cheap. So I do have interest in 5,200. Kevin Knox looks like a decent value play now, in particular with Shaedon Sharpe out. Some interest there. Do you think Drew Eubanks is questionable and likely to be ruled out, right? Oh, he's
no, Eubanks is actually not on the injury report. He is in.
That is I just assumed that he was questionable and going to be sitting out. Didn't even look at the designation. I mean, Eubanks he's going to pick up some usage there if he's in the game with all these guys though. So with the like regular NBA players, I have concerns that if he's doing too well, he's going to get pulled. Like, if you think that's a legitimate concern with, like, I think Drew Eubanks could be too good for the Blazers and they'll pull him if he's doing too well. Do you think that's a legitimate concern here?
Somewhat. I think there's definitely, so yes and no. I think when it comes to Drew Eubanks, I think the biggest concern is that he's 26 years old. That's like a dinosaur relative to the other guys that the Blazers are going to be playing. And the other thing too, that's kind of funny about Drew Eubanks is Portland signed him when they were tanking to a 10-day contract at the end of the season. Was it 2 years ago or was it last year? They signed Drew Eubanks to a 10-day contract and just kept him around forever. They might not even be paying him. It might be like a thing like The Office where he just keeps showing up and nobody's told him he isn't getting paid. He just likes to play basketball. But there isn't that much motivation to play Eubanks big minutes relative to, maybe you just throw out there and say like, hey, let's give Jabari Walker minutes. Let's give John Butler minutes just to get them run that they haven't gotten before. So I'm pretty hesitant to project Drew Eubanks to play big minutes.
I'm the same way. So I'm more inclined to play some of the cheaper options for the Blazers than to go to, and it's risky if you don't play any Drew Eubanks. That's definitely risky. But I'm probably not actually going to get there. So I think for me, it's going to be, I have some interest in Shaq Harrison. I have some interest in Jonathan Williams. Skylar Mays, even at 6,400, I imagine is going to get pretty good usage here and potentially put up some good fantasy points. So I have interest in Skylar Mays.
Oh my God. So we were just talking about before. Someone said, are you concerned about THT getting the midday downgrade to probable?
Well, now I am.
Now he's questionable. Yeah. Now we're concerned.
That's different. That's a different type of midday downgrade. Yeah, that's what are we doing here?
Man, these slates this time of year.
That is tough. What time is that game? All right, it's
Yeah,
the
let's see.
9 o'clock Eastern game.
And we've got the spread out games as well today. So if we're reading off the games from just Eastern Standard Time, we've got a 7 o'clock game, 7:30, 8, 9, 10. So they're spaced out throughout the night. There is at least one game after it. I'm going to leave THT in for now. Here is my hope. Here's what I'm hoping happens. I hope that we get news about the Denver guys before OKC and Utah locks. And by leaving THT in, it just gives me this ability to swap on to Denver guys when that news comes. It gives me the ability to swap on to other Utah guys if we end up getting that news. So I'm going to leave THT in right now, with the caveat being that I don't have a strong lean on if he plays or not, but I think it's reasonable to have him in just because I like the flexibility it's going to give my lineups.
Yeah, that's fine. Just leaving in a later player. My only concern, so we've talked about this before, like sometimes if you do leave him in and you like project for him being in, if there are great Jazz players, like Jazz players who would be great values, who would open up if he's out, we might miss out on them if we decide to just leave THT in and hope for the best later, because we're going to be jamming in all of the value from the early games. So you're not going to leave yourself any value spots if you don't like force it in. So that's the only concern here. I'm trying to see if there are any Jazz guys who would become huge priorities if THT is ruled out.
Yeah, there was never a point where I really seriously contemplated.
I guess Chris Dunn, probably, right?
So Chris Dunn at 5,600 would become, I assume he would start and look better. Kelly Olynyk would look a little bit better for sure at 6,900. Now, I know that's not a value option. Who else? Yeah, I think it would primarily be, so it would primarily be Chris Dunn, and then I think also somebody like Fontecchio would project better just because we've seen him play extended minutes at point in time this year. It's kind of interesting because if you look at the pricing for the Jazz, it's not like there's that many guys that are super cheap, right? We don't have like these min price guys like exist on Cleveland or exist on Orlando. So I'm actually going to push back a little bit about what you said before, because as I'm looking at the Utah players now, I don't know that I'd want to play any of these guys over the value from Cleveland or Orlando anyway, even if THT was ruled out.
Okay, yeah. If you don't think anybody becomes a priority, then I'd agree with you. Like I'm just looking at what would happen if THT is ruled out, just trying to kind of prognosticate what would be the case in that scenario. So that's all I just mean we need to look at it before we just assume THT is in and save that spot. I'd rather see if there is any value that would look great. I think I'm inclined to play some Chris Dunn. So I think Chris Dunn, he already projects for 30.5 fantasy points. I think he'd project for like 35 fantasy points if THT is out. So I think the way I'm going to approach it is I'm gonna take the bet on THT being out and give Chris Dunn a boost to like 35 fantasy points here and see what my lineups look like.
You know, I like that because we were talking before, and that was the first guy that I brought up too, Chris Dunn. So I like that, and I totally agree with you. I think Chris Dunn looks decent as is. Unfortunately, decent is generally not what we're going for on this slate with all of the amount of value we have. But I do think it's fairly likely we see THT sit now, considering this information went from in to probable to now questionable. I'll do the same as you. I'm going to give a thumbs up to Chris Dunn in Fantasy Cruncher, rerun lineups, and I'm just going to see where he ends up coming out in my lineups after I do that. So while that runs, let me answer some of these super chats that we got during the news dump there. Chris Albers, best plays position by position. Yeah, I could do that right now. And actually, the lineups that I was running just finished. I got to 25% Chris Dunn, by the way.
Yeah, I got to. So I just put him at 35, and I got to 32%.
Yeah, 25% Chris Dunn. I'm cool with that. I think that's a pretty good place to be as a placeholder there. So lineups for Chris Albers. Here's who I got the most exposure to at point guard is SGA, Ricky Rubio, and Jalen Suggs. A lot of chalk there. I think it's all justified. How about yourself at point guard? If you have lineups in front of you, if not, then I will. I can just do it.
So I've done a run. I got to. I'm going to be changing it. I don't know what to do with Ricky Rubio because I don't know that I trust the minutes fully. I have 96% currently. I think I'm going to cut down on that. I'm only doing 25 lineups, but currently I have Ricky Rubio, SGA, and James Harden, my highest owned point guards.
And then at shooting guard for myself, THT and Jalen Suggs. You?
Suggs, Cole Anthony, Josh Giddey.
Small forward, Chetty Osman, Taylor Horton Tucker, Jimmy Butler. Yourself?
So I took THT out. So I've got Chetty, Jimmy Butler, and then Keldon Johnson.
And now, and by the way, so I left THT in. I just gave Chris Dunn the thumbs up so he would show up in more lineups.
Okay.
Power forward, Mo Wagner, Chetty Osman, Bol. Yourself?
Same.
And then center, Mo Wagner, Bol, and Joel Embiid.
Same.
All right, cool. By the way, Drew Eubanks ended up getting 10% of. I'm cool with that number.
Yeah, I currently don't have any Drew Eubanks.
I still think there is an upside for him. I just don't think it's likely. So that's where the 10% ended up coming in. Some more super chats. The next one is from my filler arc. Are the Heat and OKC the only ones that need a win? The Jazz need a win. All right, so let's go through all these games. Cavs and Magic, neither of them need a win. Okay. Heat and Sixers. I'm looking at the standings too, just to double check. Heat and Sixers, neither of them need a win. I mean, the Heat need a win. The Sixers don't. The Blazers and Spurs, they haven't needed a win in 3 years. OKC and Utah, both of them need a win. Denver and Phoenix, neither of them need a win.
I would even go so far as to say Portland and San Antonio need a loss.
Yeah,
no, they really
enough.
don't, though, do they? They're far enough down in the standings. Are they really even at risk?
Let's see, Portland. The Spurs are a half game up on the Rockets right now.
Oh no.
Yeah. They need the Spurs need a loss bad.
They need a loss. Yeah, actually they both do need. Well, what's the okay, so we got 20 wins and 20 wins for the Spurs and Rockets. What's in the Eastern Conference? Pistons. Okay. So those three look like they are the bottom. But yeah, the Spurs still want to. Well, the Blazers have 33.
The Blazers are at 33 wins, but the Pacers are at 34. The Wizards are at 34, and the Magic are at 34. Not a coincidence that the Magic see where they're on the stands. They go, oh no. I know Adam had tweeted about this, and I thought it was really funny that the Magic try to play it off coincidentally. Right, like all of their players got hurt at the exact same time with various ailments, and it's just like, oh no, this is just a coincidence.
So maybe I'm behind in the times in terms of what it means to get into the lottery, like who gets into the lottery. My understanding is that the bottom 3 teams in the standings all have an equal shot at the number 1 pick, and then from there it's like slightly lesser. Is that
I'm trying to think. It's somewhere around there, but also depending how bad your record is, you have a draft slot floor where you can only drop so low. So I think if you have the worst record, you could only drop as far as 4th, and then if you have the second worst record, you can only fall as far as 5th and 6th and so on. So there is still incentive to just be a shitty basketball team for some of these individual games.
Yeah, so it is right. So the bottom 3 all have, I think Brad Clayton saying the bottom 3 all have a 14% chance of that number 1 pick, and then 4th 12.5. I'm just thinking, could anybody catch these as far as like the bottom of the standings? Because we've got those 3 teams so low relative to everybody else. Pistons 16, Rockets and Spurs at 20, and then like the Blazers are all the way up at 33, so they can't catch them in terms of tanking. Hornets at 26. It seems to me like it's locked in. Anyway, this is beside. We don't really need to get into.
We're just answering the super chat. He wanted to know. Yeah. He wanted to know who. He wanted to know who was going to be in. But no, there is still incentive for the Spurs to have a worse record than the Rockets, if possible. If possible. Okay. It's out of their hands though, because you got well, actually, I don't know who is the opposite tiebreaker between them, but either way. So as for your question or my filler arc, the Heat and OKC, they both need a win, and then a handful of teams that need a loss, and the Jazz also need a win. No other. Oh, nope. Sorry. One more super chat. Wild question. Giddey or Cole Anthony? Let me look. That is Giddey. Like, I don't even know the scenario we're comparing them.
What was he asking?
Giddey or Cole Anthony? If you got the salary space, you're playing Giddey.
Yeah.
There's what's the difference between them salary wise? Yeah, Giddey's 8,600, and yeah, I mean you're looking at $2,900 in salary difference between them. Points per dollar, I think Cole Anthony's better, but it's just not a move you're pulling if you have the salary space. Next question is from Chris Albers. there any low-owned value plays for GPP? I would say Chris Dunn right now.
Yeah, agreed.
Let me refresh to see where ownership is at right now.
It's hard to find contrarian plays on a slate like this. I think Chris Dunn, if you count 5,600 as a value play, he's an interesting one.
The other thing about this slate too is there are a ton of guys that project well points per dollar that are not that popular, but they're just not on the same level as, you know, like a Mo Wagner or Jalen Suggs or a Bobo from a projection standpoint. So yeah, there are plenty of guys that are close to min price that are projecting for, you know, 21, 22 fantasy points. The problem is that there's other guys that's out of there projecting for 30 plus fantasy points.
Right.
But let's look at it this way. So I think both you and I are going to answer Chris Dunn. But if we had to pick somebody who's like a punt type play that isn't picking up ownership, what would be your answer in that scenario? And actually, Jordan, why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, put the boom bust tool on screen and we could see who looks the best in the boom bust tool.
We still have Robin Lopez around 4% ownership.
Let's look.
Yeah, we still got Robin Lopez at 4% ownership with a 66% chance of booming, which everybody's booming on this slate, but 14% chance of being optimal too. It's kind of interesting.
So let me look at all of the super cheap guys and see which ones have positive leverage. You mentioned Robin Lopez. Yeah, not a bad fantasy producer. Chance for him to play extended minutes. Another one that projects pretty well for us for cheap with an opportunity, Jonathan Williams. Williams is projected for 5% ownership, 4,000. And what is our projection now on Jonathan Williams? 25 fantasy. So it's funny, like somebody like this, right? Jonathan Williams, 25.5 fantasy points at 4,000. Great positional eligibility, shooting guard and small forward. Everybody's projecting him fairly well, but he doesn't pick up that much ownership because of how many guys project better. But if I had to pick out one guy who I think could stand to pick up extra minutes, I'll go with Jonathan Williams here as a punt type option.
Would you go Jonathan Williams over Shaq Harrison though?
Would I go Jonathan Williams over Shaq Harrison? Let me look at my portal.
I like the call up, by the way, of Jonathan Williams. I like that call up. I just want to add one there in Shaq Harrison. I feel like those two are pretty comparable.
So I get to Jonathan Williams more because of the positional eligibility. Shaq Harrison's only point guard. Jonathan Williams is shooting guard and small forward. And there are so many good point guard plays today. So if you look on DK, SGA, point guard only. Ricky Rubio, point guard only. James Harden, point guard only. So I think there's more opportunity cost to Shaq Harrison than there is to Jonathan Williams, being that Jonathan is shooting guard and small forward.
There's no way Keldon Johnson actually plays though. Like we've got him in, right? And I'm not actually saying this. I'm just thinking like they just took Shaedon Sharpe. Like the Spurs have to match the Blazers now and take out Keldon Johnson.
Oh, you would think so. This is going to be, it's going to be funny where it's like Jonathan Williams starts 2 for 2 from the field and they just take him out of the game. Yeah. So what's happening here?
Yeah.
It's very dumb happenings at this point in the season. Very, very dumb. We got another, oh no, just answered that super chat. Let me go into Discord and see what questions we have there. Also, don't forget guys, we're sponsored by Sorare today. Sorare is a really fun platform to play on. Neil and I have been doing a bunch of breakdowns for it. And it's a collectible card game. You play DFS contests for it. You win more cards in the contest. They sell for a bunch of money on the secondary market there. And if you guys want to check out Sorare, you can sign up totally for free. And when you do sign up, use the link that we have below because you can sign up totally for free. But if you do decide that you want to buy some players to help boost your collection, when you sign up using our link after you purchase 5 limited player cards, you're going to get a 6th one totally for free. And Neil and I will be showing you guys some more of the utility of the cards and how to build lineups. We're in the post-lock show. But getting into the Discord, we have a question from Mincash Merchant. What would you project Dunn for with no THT? Mid to high 30s fantasy points.
Yep. Let me throw one more name out there just for the last question. Goga Bitadze, also only projecting for 1% ownership. Now, we know if he gets minutes, Goga could put up a huge fantasy score. So I'll throw him out there as another potential low-owned guy who, if he gets minutes, could be interesting.
And would be serving as leverage as well off of some of the magic plays. The next question here is from Manny. I see you guys high on SGA. Do you think Giddey will be sneaky in single entry on FanDuel? Well, what is his ownership? Giddey is projected for how much ownership for Giddey? Well, it depends what you mean by sneaky, right? Because I think Giddey has a lot of opportunity today, but he's projected for 30% ownership on FanDuel. So he's not sneaking up on him. He's meaning a third in the field's lineups. By default, I think we can't call somebody's 30% owned sneaky, right?
Yeah, probably not.
Good play though, but he's really popular on FanDuel. And then the Black Mamba wants to know who are the top plays on DK. So here are the players overall I get the most exposure to right now. Mo Wagner, SGA, Chetty Osman, Ricky Rubio. Those are my 4 most rostered players.
Yeah. I got to cut back on my Embiid a little bit. That's what I'm learning.
I mean, I have a lot of Embiid as well. He's in about half my lineups.
No, he's in 92% of my lineups right now, and I don't want to take that. I mean, if you do want to, I think that's fine, but I don't want to risk that much on Embiid because I do think there is risk that he plays fewer minutes.
Yeah. So the other thing also, though, is he could score 45 fantasy points and be optimal on this slate because there's so much value.
Yep.
I had the same thoughts as you, and I just found it nearly impossible because if you reduce the amount of exposure you get to him, you ultimately end up cutting out the amount of the good, cheap value plays you get.
Yeah.
Or you're just leaving a ton of salary on the table. All right. Lineups uploaded. Make sure I click the right CSV. Things get tricky. Lots of new CSVs this time of year. All uploaded and set. So Black Mamba answered that. And Manny, we answered that question. Question from Hef Love. He wants to know, do you like Skylar Mays as a low-owned pivot on DK? I do have exposure to Skylar Mays.
Yeah, I think he's interesting.
Yeah, I do like Skylar Mays. So many guys out for Portland, and I assume he starts and plays as big of a role as he could handle. Also, I feel like this is the 4th or 5th year in a row that Skylar Mays has just been important in garbage time at the end of seasons. Maybe not that much, but probably 3rd year in a row. Last 2 years with Atlanta, he just popped up as a pivotal guy for the last 2 weeks of the NBA season.
Yeah. Good for him.
Super chat here is from Corey Shea. My all-time favorite one. Do you remember the guy Xavier Simpson last year, Neil?
No.
So OKC signed this guy from the G League who was like 5'8" and only shot hook shots. And he was their starting point guard. He played like 40 minutes a game for them last week.
Didn't the Knicks do that once? There was like, they needed a player and there just happened to be like some G League player who was nearby in New York before a game. So they signed him that day. I forget who it was now.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I'm going to look up, when we get to the post-lock show, I'm going to look up some Xavier Simpson for just to make sure that I'm remembering the right guy. But yeah, he was, his nickname was Captain Hook because he only 5'8" and only shot hook shots. Not much opportunity in the NBA doing that. Corey Shea wants to know Chetty Osman or Bol. I have more exposure. These are 2 of my most rostered players. I have more exposure to Chetty, but I think both of them are really good plays. Ideally, both of it could only be one or the other. Chetty. How about yourself? Who do you have more of, Chetty Osman or Bol?
I have actually the exact same. I've got 76% of each of them.
Nariki wants to know Shaq Harrison minutes and projection.
So we should say there are a couple more players on the Blazers who could be ruled out still. So it's kind of hard to totally project. But what do we have him for right now?
I have Shaq Harrison for 30 minutes. And that has him at 25.8 fantasy points.
Yeah, so we have interesting. So we have the Stochastic Shaq Harrison at 28 minutes, 27.3 fantasy points. But I gave him a little boost just because I think that there's a chance that others are ruled out.
Next question in here is from JEW. $7,600 left and could go with Bam, but any concern with Bam and Embiid together with foul trouble? No, play Bam. Somebody else had asked $7,600 for a utility spot before, and the options are like Bam or Olynyk. And just considering the salary you'd have to leave on the table, it's pretty clearly Bam for me based on what I looked at before. So go with Bam. Go with Bam. And as for other questions, it looks like we are all set with those. I just want to also read off before we get to lock some of my most rostered players on FanDuel. We didn't get any super chats about FanDuel, but I want to make sure that you guys who are playing on FanDuel still have some of this information. In my FanDuel builds, these are the players I get the most exposure to. Point guard, SGA, Ricky Rubio, James Harden. Shooting guard, SGA, THT, James Harden. So a lot of overlap there. Small forward, Chetty Osman, THT, Jimmy Butler. power forward, Mo Wagner and Chetty Osman. And then, did my tab really have to close just as I get to the end there?
Oh, no.
It has to. Good thing I uploaded my CSV already. That would have been really annoying if I just had my browser close on me before I had the opportunity to do that. Center, I know that Joel Embiid was the one I ended up with the most of on FanDuel, but I'll have to wait for this to load to see who ended up coming up the second most. All right, while that loads, we got a question here from Naraki. He wants to ask us about Agbaji. Agbaji's tough because he's such a poor fantasy producer, but there's so much opportunity. The only scenario I'd be getting to Agbaji is if THT is rolled out, and that would just be a little bit of Agbaji. It wouldn't make him a priority. So Agbaji points per minute this year. Once again, it's not all that telling because there hasn't a lot of these players. You can't look at their data this year and draw any conclusion from because none of them have been in these spots all year. Agbaji, somebody I'm only going to be playing if THT is rolled out.
Yeah.
Did you get to him at all?
I don't have any Agbaji.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody was talking about concerns about Bol's minutes since he hasn't played. Really, he hasn't played since mid-March and hasn't played like double-digit minutes since even earlier than that. But he's starting. Like I would be concerned if not for the fact that he's starting. But I think he plays at least like 24 minutes here. We've got him in for 29, which I mean that is fair. Maybe that's it's aggressive. But I don't he's not coming back from injury or anything. He's just
bad.
Yeah, just bad.
Hey, listen,
I mean, he's a great fantasy producer.
That's what I said about Quentin Grimes yesterday. And then he went and scored a bunch of fantasy points. It's hard looking at the data from this year because, you just get guys who are in situations they haven't been in the entire season. That could definitely change some of the outlook of what they end up doing. But getting back to some of your guys' questions and nothing else from a super chat perspective, Discord, nothing else in there right now. And we are at lock. So if you guys haven't done it yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and don't go anywhere. Because what Neil and I are going to be doing in the coming minutes, we're going to build some lineups for Sorare, which is always fun. I like doing that. Do you have rewards? Do you have cards we could open as well? Or
no, because we opened them on Monday. Right. Yeah,
I forgot because the slate hasn't ended yet.
And it kind of ruined me because I pulled that Kevin Durant and I played it. So that's the other thing I forgot. That's the one that's really tanking me. I played Kevin Durant in my main lineup.
And then the other thing too that you guys should stick around for, here's the current injury report scenario. These are the players who are still outstanding on the injury report. THT is questionable. Keldon Johnson is questionable. Tyrese Maxey is questionable. Aaron Gordon is questionable. Michael Porter Jr. is questionable. Trendon Watford is questionable. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is questionable. DeAnthony Melton is questionable. And some of those guys like Maxey, Melton, it's going to be pretty important if those guys are in or not. Could impact James Harden, make him look a lot better. And we are for sure going to get that news in the upcoming stretch of time because that game locks at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, which is how long we were going to be sticking on for. Neil, do you have any final thoughts about your lineups or anything as we just passed lock?
Go SGA. I guess. I mean, I still have a good amount of in the first game. Rubio, Osman, Bol. I've got 76 plus Moritz Wagner down at 72%. Tons of those guys. So I guess I'm cheering for those guys. Yeah. Good luck.
There we go. All right. So we have approach lock, right? And we are now ready to build some Sorare lineups. So let's pull it up. Jordan, if you wouldn't mind, share the screen here. All right, it's up. And now Neil and I could build some Sorare lineups for tomorrow. We also have projections, which are totally free over at stochastic.com. They might not be updated quite yet for tomorrow, though, because there are so many moving parts. And
Maxey out.
Oh, there we go. All right. So sorry that I made you pull this up, Jordan, but we are going to have to look right back at the DFS slate. Apologies to Jordan Klein, but Tyrese Maxey is out. Melton is in because Melton is starting.
Yep.
So let's go look at that then. And let's look at some of the on-off court numbers for this team as well. With Maxey off the court, who's gotten benefits this year? Stands to reason that Melton is going to be one, that Harden and Embiid to a lesser extent. Maxey off the court. Harden's also relatively cheap today.
9,400. Yeah.
All right. So I'm taking Maxey off to see how he looks. And in terms of Joel Embiid's usage is already so high, but Embiid 39% usage rate this year with Maxey off the court and scores nearly 60 fantasy points per 36 minutes, 59.98 on DraftKings, and actually north of 60 on FanDuel, 60.17. So Joel Embiid looks great with Maxey off the court, as does James Harden, 46 FanDuel points per 36 minutes, 48 DraftKings points per 36 minutes. So Harden, Embiid, guys we already liked, but are you gonna try to get yourself to a little bit more of them now that we have Maxey out?
No, because I think the risks are the same as they were. I mean,
Okay,
a little bit more usage, but I already have 40% Harden, 50, 60% Embiid. So I don't think that I need to be forcing in more of them with the risk that they are going to be pulled. Melton is the one who probably gets the biggest bump for me. 4,900 though. I mean, I guess the first game already locked, so I've already got a lot of value locked up. We'll see if I need it, but he'll probably get a sizable boost here.
it looks like Harden is going to be the player that I end up getting to the more. So like Melton's the individual player that gets the biggest boost just from a projection standpoint. By the way, Matisse Thybulle ruled out. We've got Cam Reddish ruled out, and Watford is actually going to be available to play.
Okay.
But first, sticking with some of the 76ers here is, so Melton benefits a bunch from this, but considering I already have some of the value spots locked up from earlier, I don't think I'm going to I'm going to go from none of him to some, but I don't think he's going to really be a priority like he would normally be in this kind of situation.
He's also starting alongside Embiid and Harden. Yeah. So like not going to be a great usage spot for him. I might go from none of him to none of him, to be honest.
It's also
Tobias Harris also does get a little boost, but he's 5,500. He'll probably project for like 28, 29 fantasy points and still just be fine.
Yeah. For this slate, he's probably not going to project well enough. Same with somebody like Shake Milton. Milton is going to be projecting for close to 20 fantasy points, and not something I'm going to, a 3,500 point guard who's projected for, 20 fantasy points. That's a nothing on the slate.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to rerun lineups, do some late swap optimize and fantasy cruncher, and then I'll let you guys know what really ended up changing for me after I do that. And we've also got a question in Discord from Trouble35. Any good props for Orlando, Cleveland before it locks for a quick same game parlay? So that's a little hard for me to answer because number one, I don't know what book you're looking at. And then number two, the odds for same game parlays, depending what book you use, are often a little bit different than the regular lines. So I'm not sure. I wish I had a more helpful answer for you, Trouble35. Let me pull up NBA Bet Pro right now. Also, what Trouble, what book are you looking at? Because that'll also be helpful information. There's so many. It could be any book. So tell me what book, and then I'll look at our projections and see what really looks good. But updating my lineups, let's swap optimize. And then when I run this, like I said, I'll tell you guys from the Sixers how this changes. I'll compare my updated lineups to, all right. Oh, he says BetMGM, DK, FanDuel, Caesars. Well, I'll tell you what projects best for us and what I agree with. Also, you've probably only got like 30 seconds here. I'm trying. By the time of the YouTube delay, it's going to be locked. All right. So ones that project really well for us. Under rebounds for Goga Batadze, under 5.5 rebounds, under 5.5 assists for Jalen Suggs in the first game. Those are the two that stand out the most.
Malakar asks Trey Jones or Melton. And I say Trey Jones, who, by the way, went to Apple Valley High School, same high school as me.
Who did?
Trey Jones.
Did his brother as well, Tyus Jones?
They both went to the same high school as me. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never realized that about
you. Did you? Was that the Mike Jones thing again? I missed it again.
No, it wasn't. I was just leaning into it.
I see.
I assume that you were the captain of the basketball team.
Yeah, absolutely. I was the best player on the court. I was the center. just dunking all over people.
One of my favorite yearbook stories. So I had my best friend growing up, his dad had a college yearbook. And in that yearbook, he had said that he was the starting quarterback and captain of the football team. And he would talk about it all the time. We'd play football in the backyard, and we would always want him to throw to us. Like, he played football in college. So we get older. There's the internet, right? Because there was also no internet when I was a kid. And so then we decided to look him up. We wanted to look up his college stats. We come to find there was no football team at the college he went to.
That's awesome.
Just brilliant stuff. So anybody ever wants a fun little thing to do in a yearbook, not that we're talking to like 13-year-olds that have yearbooks right now, but just something of interest. If your team doesn't have if you go to a college that doesn't have a football team, you go to a high school that doesn't have a football team, nobody's going to give a shit if you said you were the captain of the football team.
You know what I did for my my high school yearbook picture. So I went to Apple Valley High School. My cousin went to Jefferson High School, one of our rival high schools, Bloomington Jefferson. I borrowed his starter jacket from Bloomington Jefferson, put on a baseball mitt, and held a football in my senior picture for my senior yearbook, just to mess with people.
There you go.
People were very confused.
Yeah, all time though, saying you were the captain of the football team. I liked that a lot. I've always kept that in the back of my mind. So I'm like, I wanted to do that. Here's the issue though. There's no point in time anytime soon. I'm in my 30s. Nobody's asking me for a yearbook.
That's true. I don't even know if I still have my yearbooks anywhere. Probably thrown out. If
we die and we reincarnate, if that's the end thing here, I'm going to keep it in mind for my next life. That's what I'm going to be doing next. Sixers exposures that I got to, because I have this in front of me now. So I got to. Oh, never mind. I should have realized to upload the correct CSV when I late swaptimized. All right, this will make this more accurate. All right, so I assume I'm going to get to more of James Harden, which is the case. I got to, and by the way, not like a massive amount more, but I got a couple more lineups with James Harden, and I got to 5% of D'Anthony Melton, right? So we went from none of my lineups to some, but not, anything that was massively game changing. Is anything going to change for you if you've rerun lineups yet?
Yeah. So let me see. Just waiting on an update here.
Yeah.
Let's see. What do we have in terms of, do we have okay. We do have the Blazers guys now out. So that's going to be helpful. I can look at who projects better for us now. Yeah, we got Jonathan and Shaq Harrison look playable. So I already given boost to Jonathan and Shaq Harrison. I don't think that I'm actually going to do anything with the Sixers to get more of anybody. Okay.
Yeah, and as I ended up the same amount of Embiid. I ended up with 2 more lineups of James Harden. I got to 5% of D'Anthony Melton. That was the fallout of, and part of that too is kind of what you had said before. I already had a bunch of Harden and a lot of Embiid.
Yeah, me too. So yeah, I already have a lot of Harden, a lot of Embiid, and I just don't think the upside is quite there as much with the Sixers guys as there is if like for the Blazers guys. Now that we have those other guys out, I think there's more upside in those guys. I think there's more upside in Chris Dunn if we get THT out. So yeah, I'm not making any changes there.
Before we build your Sorare lineups, you want to hear some numbers on Captain Hook, Xavier Simpson?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So he played 4 games last year for the OKC. 4 games, the last 4 games of the year. So aggressive tanking. In the 4 games he's played, he's only played 4 NBA games in his entire career. How many minutes per game would you guess OKC played him in those 4 games?
38.
43 and a half.
Oh my God.
So this is all-time aggressive tanking. And also, like I said, the guy's like 5'8" and only shoots a hook shot. That's his entire game. His efficiency from the field. I'm gonna have you guess. What do you think he shot overall from the field in those 4 games where he's playing 43 and a half minutes per game?
Wait, you said he's short, but his only shot was a hook shot?
Yes.
34%.
36.5% for the tank commander, Xavier Simpson, Mr. Captain Hook. He also did shoot some threes. He shot a cool 12.5% from 3. Ooh. A legend, an absolute legend in tanking. And also somebody who was absolutely needed for those end of season NBA DFS. For a couple of them, he wasn't in the player pool. And then he gets added in and he was cheap and put up stat lines like this. So I'm going to pull up a stat line for Xavier Simpson. Yeah, his final game of the year, he had 17 points, 7 assists, 9 rebounds, a block, and a steal at like a really cheap salary. So that's what we usually end up dealing with at the end of the NBA season. Guys like Captain Hook. Let's build your Sorare lineups out now, Neil. I want to look at that and try to find some value in the spots that we're looking at in your lineups.
Take a look. Yeah, I've had a couple people saying they want to come drink beers. I'd totally meet people out at a bar for beers if there's anybody local here wants to grab a beer sometime. Not tonight, obviously, but at some point.
There we go. Yeah, right now, not right now. Okay, so let's see. Which contest are we going to enter here, Neil? Tell Jordan what to click on.
Let's do limited champion.
Okay, limited champion. I'm going to build out some lineups for Neil. So this is going to be really interesting on the high end because usually we just lock and load some of the expensive guys. Here's the issue, though. I don't know that Jokic is playing any more games this season. I don't know that Giannis is playing any more games this season. By the way, we just got a super chat from my filler arc. THT questionable, not confirmed out. Yeah, we said that before.
Yeah, apparently we weren't responding to that.
Where was
E-Page had been asking when he was confirmed out.
Oh,
yeah, he wasn't confirmed out.
THT's questionable. THT's questionable. So we don't know. He could be in, he could be out. We tend to think he's probably a little more likely to sit than play, but nothing totally confirmed there. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting. How are we going to use your captain spot here? Because scroll down a little, Jordan. I guess we go to Embiid, right? Let's go. Let's put Embiid and Anthony Davis in. You comfortable with that?
In
terms of guys that we think, guys that we're really confident. Well, actually, Luka now as well, because we've got the Mavericks are back in the mix. So here's where you're going to want to update to. If OKC wins tonight, I think you probably want to take Luka out. If OKC loses tonight, I think you want Luka in.
Okay.
Very tricky.
Yeah, and I guess I can set it tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll do Anthony Davis for now, though.
Jake Swells asks, who do we think is the best hooper at Stochastic? I mean, if Jay Kari beat Eric Lindquist, I got to say probably Jay Kari. I have no idea if Tom is any good. With Tom being 6'8", like he'd have a pretty big advantage if he is good.
Brody. Brody's 6'7" and played college basketball.
Okay, it's Brody.
Yeah, so Brody, I understand he's probably asking in terms of the on-air talent people he's familiar with.
Yeah, true.
That are here. Let's see.
Which probably does not include Jay Kari at this point since he stopped doing any kind of content a few years back.
The people are familiar with Jay Kari.
I used to actually be good at basketball, by the way. And I also could dunk at one point in my life, even though I'm not that tall. These days, yes, I suck. Like I haven't played basketball in years. Not gonna be any good. And I'm super out of shape.
Yeah. So I played basketball when we were in Chicago at our company meetup. I had not played basketball in a very long time. Like you, I also played competitively when I was younger and I sucked. I was terrible.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to go from not playing for a few years to trying to find your jump shot. Like the mechanics of it all felt weird.
Yeah. I played basketball at a park, maybe 10 years. I think I was in law school, so maybe even more than 10 years ago when I was in a lot better shape than I am now. I remember playing on the playground with like high school kids and I did like a fadeaway, like jumped as high as I could, like jumping like a fadeaway jump shot and just got blocked so hard by like I thought I was so high, like there's no way anybody was going to block me. I got blocked so hard by one of these high school kids. So now I'm no good anymore.
Jordan's not bad either. Jordan, what's your opinion? Who would you say is the best basketball player at the company that the audience would be familiar with? You think Jake? Okay. I mean, Jake did beat Eric. Now, with that said, Eric was a little bit more winded at that point in time because Eric had already played some games.
Okay.
I'm going to go Jake beat Eric, so we have to say Jake. People want to know if Lofty is athletic. I don't know. Lofty didn't play with us there. I would imagine, though, Lofty probably has issues with the amount of just the years of smoking and the vaping.
Yeah.
I would think I don't know what his oh my Keldon Johnson is playing.
I mean, we have him listed in, right?
No, he was questionable, and we were saying before that we were pretty sure he wasn't going to play.
Yeah, but like in our projections, we have him.
Oh
in.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't actually do anything to make myself get to more San Francisco. Sorry, to get to more San Antonio.
San Francisco. Yeah, but we've got Zach Collins and Keldon Johnson and Romeo Langford. All three of them are in. So there we go.
Gridpack says Tom Kennedy was Victor Wembanyama before he chose to be a CEO. I believe it.
Yeah, it's true. So because and the other thing too is that I brought Thomas, even though Tom is not a teenager, he's still growing. Every time there's a story told about his height, he gets taller and taller and taller.
It's true.
For everybody asking, yes, Keldon Johnson is in. Keldon is in. All right, so we've got Embiid, we've got Anthony Davis. Scroll down all the way to the bottom. I want to look at Neil's players and just see who has opportunity to get extended minutes that's really cheap. Really cheap. Probably not this far. We don't want to look at the inactive guys. But Gorgie Jang, not Nasir Little. Boy, I mean, how aggressively tanking are you if you can't play Nasir Little?
Right.
But that's where the Blazers are at right now. They've got Nasir Little out tonight. Torian Prince, that would be a no. I want to find, one of these cheap guys. Edmund Sumner could. I wonder if the Nets will rest players. Here, you have Day'Ron Sharpe, right?
I do.
That's somebody who I think could just be massive for Sorare. Day'Ron Sharpe. Further down. There we go. Yeah. Put Day'Ron Sharpe in. Day'Ron Sharpe, really good fantasy producer. The Nets are a team who I would not be surprised once they guarantee their playoff spot. They'd probably sit Nick Claxton, probably sit Bridges, sit Cam Johnson. I think Day'Ron Sharpe would get extended minutes. So yeah, let's go Day'Ron Sharpe there. What are some of these mid-range options? So we've got 51 left, 25.5 average for the final two spots. Off the top of your head, do you remember any of the guys that you have that are like fairly cheap that you would like to get to here?
Not really.
Okay. Mark Williams would be a possibility there in the mid-range.
Svi
Mkaluk. Oh, Biyombo. Could be a Biyombo slate. Go to put Mark Williams in. I'm trying to remember when it's his turn next. Because, they do those dumb turns. I'm pretty sure it's Mark Williams' turn to start tomorrow. So let's go Mark Williams. He's in, and then we've got 27 left. Not McConnell. Not John Collins. I think the next best option is going to be Svi. Yeah, put Svi in.
Let's go to Svi.
Svi's 23. Yeah. And then once there's more news, we could tinker with that tomorrow. But yeah, so you guys see here kind of the basics of how you would build out a Sorare lineup. We do have projections totally free over at Stochastic.com. Wait until tomorrow where they're a little bit more updated, though, just because there's going to be so much news that changes constantly. Like, think about it this way right now. If we don't know who we're going to be playing in DFS 2 minutes before lock, we're certainly not going to know 24 hours and 2 minutes before lock. So be on the lookout for some of those updates tomorrow. Totally free projections. I'll actually drop that link into chat so people have it on hand.
No Suggs, no cash is right. 4 minutes in, 12 fantasy points.
Ooh, nice. All
Did
right,
not know he was a 3 fantasy point per minute guy.
Who else is going good here? So we've got, this isn't great. 0 fantasy points for Chetty Osman and Ricky Rubio. But yeah, Jalen Suggs is going off right now. Bol's off to a good start. 2 points, 3 boards, and an assist for Bol. 8 points, a rebound, then an assist for Jalen Suggs. We are only 3 minutes into the game there.
Rubio, 2 fouls and out of the game.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's not looking good.
How will Neto?
Looking good.
Should we have gone Neto as the leverage play there?
I thought about that.
Did you really?
I did.
Even if you didn't, you might as well say it now.
Yeah, no, I actually did I actually get to any? I gave him a little projection boost to potentially get to some, but I don't think I went there.
Yeah, Rubio is in foul trouble. Rubio is in foul trouble.
I guess I thought about it enough to boost Raul Neto to 24 fantasy points and didn't get any.
How do you get in foul trouble when the opposing team's backcourt is Jalen Suggs and
Right?
Caleb Houston?
Doesn't make any damn sense. Jalen Suggs, another former Minneapolis basketball player.
Back-to-back buckets and a board for Chetty Osman. So right there, he goes from a guy who scores 0 fantasy points per minute to over a fantasy point per minute, just like that. Chetty Osman. No Chetty, no cash. Before, if you had Chetty, you had to log off because your lineups were dead. That's how quickly things turn in the first few minutes of the slate. What Jordan, what snack you got there? Okay, fancy. Do you know, because he's one of your favorite players, Neil? Did you know that Anthony Edwards, somebody asked him what his favorite foods are? He said he eats 3 bags of Cheetos a day.
I think I heard that, but I don't believe it. He doesn't eat 3 bags. Unless he means like the little bags. Like
I don't know. He said the big ones. That's what he said anyway.
Wow, Jalen Suggs absolutely breaking the slate. Yeah, I regret not having more at this point.
Yeah, Johnny Vegas, no Chetty, no Penny. Suggs eating, Suggs another 3. Yes, we got Chetty up to 5 points and a rebound, and Suggs 11 points, a rebound, and an assist.
14 points now with 4 3-pointers made.
Just going nuts.
Yeah, he's going all. I only have him in 2 lineups, and I think the big reason is that I boosted Chris Dunn, so then just didn't get any. He projects well for us, over 30 fantasy points at 4,000, but so do so many other players. And then because I boosted Chris Dunn, yeah.
Who's the funniest player in the NBA? I think it's a close race between Anthony Edwards and Joel Embiid.
I take Ant, but yeah, Embiid is funny.
Did you see the interview Embiid did yesterday?
No.
He was asked how he learned how to shoot because he didn't start playing basketball until he was like 16 or 17 years old. Joel Embiid. He said he just went on YouTube and looked up videos of white guys shooting, and that was how he learned how to shoot. YouTube, just watching. But he said specifically just white guys shooting. He said that. Let me find the quote. I'd retweet it earlier. It's a very funny interview.
Mark Gill asking, is Rubio alive? No, he got 2 fouls and now he's on the bench.
Yeah, Rubio's in foul trouble. Rubio, some foul difficulties. Yeah, so this is Joel Embiid was asked how he learned how to shoot, how he learned his basketball skills. This is in the Players Tribune. So he says, I'm chilling one night. I go on YouTube and I'm thinking about how to figure out this shooting thing. And I go to the search box and I start thinking how to shoot 3-pointers. Nah. How to shoot with good form. Nah. And then the light bulb went off. I typed in the magic words, white people shooting 3-pointers. And from there, he went down a rabbit hole. And that's what he says turned him into a good shooter. So that's what it is. That's what you could credit Joel Embiid. Most good information is found on YouTube. I would say, as we're here on
YouTube, the best place to find good info for sure.
But that's the 2 players. I would say it's Joel Embiid and Anthony Edwards. The thing about Edwards too, because like you said, you don't believe the Cheeto thing. I don't know either, because there's so much that Anthony Edwards says in interviews and press conferences that's very blatantly false.
Right.
Like, do you remember when A-Rod bought the Timberwolves or bought an
said
ownership
he didn't know
share?
who he was.
And he was asked what he thought about A-Rod, and he was like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, exactly.
And he just pretended to not know.
He's an interesting guy. He's A1 from day one, though. I don't know if he still has a flip phone. Yeah. Love him, though.
Interesting. Does he really have a flip phone? Huh. Well, Patrick Lawrence says that Chester hot fires are amazing. I assume he meant Cheeto hot fries. Or maybe
Cheeto hot fries.
Or are they called fires or fries? I can't eat them for multiple reasons. So the reasons I wouldn't eat them, number 1, they look like they taste bad. Number 2, I'm not allowed to eat spicy food. And number 3, I can't eat dairy. And I'm pretty sure all of those things are together in stuff that I can't eat.
Going to make it tough for you, yeah. Man, Jalen Suggs, 42% owned, 21.5 fantasy points already.
By the way, shout out to W.R. Kellogg, who knew that Rubio was going to bust, had 0%, but then played him because I was playing Rubio.
Yeah. Me too, actually. Wasn't going to play him. And then Greg was playing him.
I do that sometimes too. I'll look on Twitter and I'll say like, boy, I think that LeBron James is going to have a shitty game tonight. And then I see everybody on Twitter will be like, hey, this is going to be a big LeBron night. And I go, boy, I better bet some LeBron overs.
Yeah, when other people are saying it. People are not believing me that I could dunk in high school. You got to understand. I'm 5'11", but I have really long arms and like high shoulders. So like I reach higher than people who are like 6'1". Like I have friends who are 6'1", and like we do the standing reach thing. I actually reach higher than them. And I was also like, it was like my number one goal in life to be able to dunk. Like I bought the shoes with weights. I think I had the shoes with the weights in them. At the very least, I bought there was a thing called, I bought a videotape called Air Alert 3, where I just like
I did Air Alert as well when I was in high school. Do you know what got recalled because kids were blowing out their ACLs doing the Air Alert workout program?
Well, those kids were clearly not massaging their knees the way you're supposed to.
Yeah, so the Air Alert workout program, in hindsight, it was really just you jump for like 30 minutes. You jump on furniture, you jump on. I could see how it would be problematic, but it did come with like a guarantee, like the Barkley, like a Charles Barkley guarantee, where it's like guaranteed to have like 6 inches to your vertical or something.
Pharaoh Dynasty, yes. Videotape as in VHS, yes. Videotape as in VHS. Oh, yeah. Like had to order it, had it delivered to me. Yep.
Dude, I did the exact same thing when I used to play basketball. I got the Air Alert. I think I did the same one as you also, Air Alert 3.
Yeah.
And then it got recalled because kids were blowing out their ACL.
I never knew.
At their parents' house.
That's hilarious.
Do you remember where because I was just jumping on couches, on chairs, I was breaking stuff.
So I had like a cement like court, like kind of not a full basketball court, but like big enough that we had 2 hoops there, and I just did all my workouts out there, which should have absolutely increased the odds that I was going to blow up my knees doing this on cement, but that's where I did it.
So we are actually at the end of our time here. I'm going to double check Discord to make sure we didn't get any questions on the way out. If not, we are done here. So that is going to do it for us today, guys. If you did not do it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to sign up at Stochastic, got a link below. It'll get you 50% off any of the packages that we have over at the site. Also, we've got our MLB 9-9 deal. It was set to expire and we have extended it. Sign up for MLB. You get 9 days, $9, all the tools we have for baseball. Baseball season is underway. Player projections, ownership projections, top stacks tool, everything you need to be profitable at MLB DFS. You'll find in our MLB package. You get it for 9 days for $9. Once again, that does it for us today, guys. I hope you have a great night. See you back here tomorrow. Only a few slates left in the season.